I'd like to call to order the Washington Township Planning Commission for April 9th, 2026. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, good evening, guys. Thanks for joining us tonight. Decently packed agenda. Can we start it with a roll call, Dana?
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Thomas? Mr. Jaski? Mr. Chaplin?
Here.
Ms. Hall?
Here.
Mr. Robb?
Here. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda for April 9th, 2026?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Approval of the minutes from the March 12th, 2026 meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes of the March 12th meeting.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Correspondence, Dana? I know there was quite a bit. I got the list. Obviously, we had ordinance provided to us by some of the local residents. A number of things. The list is extensive. I want to let everybody know we did receive these items. The commission did get them. The professionals did get them as well. They are part of the record. And we can move on. Public comment, non-agenda related items. If there's anybody here that'd like to speak about something going on in Washington Township that is not on tonight's agenda, this would be the time to come up to the podium to speak on that. If it's anything related to the items on, I ask that you wait till that item comes up. Seeing none, we can move on to new business. New business. There is none tonight. We're dealing with some of the older projects that we've been dealing with over the last few months. Item A, the Groves at Washington. If anybody's here from the Groves, please come on up. Hi. This is for the rezoning request from an A1 to an R1D for part of 2404-11-101-016, 36.6 acres. And I understand there's been new material that's been given to us regarding that that was missing from last meeting. Would you like to discuss?
That's correct. Mr. Miller, ladies and gentlemen of the board, is that me? Ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you for your time this evening. My name is John Eady. I'm the attorney for the project. Also here today is Michael DeMille and Hannah Parakovic from the developer. They were here on your meeting on the 12th, and this was brought as new business before you. There were a couple of items that were missing in the developmental impact statement, those that has been updated as requested. Mr. Kozak has pointed out there's a couple of other items that need to be further updated. Those are the maps. The maps that were added to the developmental impact statement recently were the publicly available maps. I think there were some issues in terms of quality of the maps. We have reached out to Urban Land Consultants. They have access to more detailed maps and more professionally drafted maps. So those will be added. We'd ask that this board consider this application with the maps as a condition of approval of the Board of Trustees. Other than that, the property since we last met, I believe, has been sold to the developer. At the time, it was a developer was developing on behalf of a seller. The transaction is closed, so the applicant is now the owner of the property as well. Other than that, there are no changes, and we ask that. I'm sorry. Other than that, there are no changes to the application. We ask that you approve it today.
Okay. I'll turn it over to our consultants. I'll start with Mike.
We stared each other down for a second. As indicated, there were still just 2 or 3 map issues in the impact statement that need to be adjusted before that should be accepted, just so that for the long-term record, those are clear. They did update that impact statement to use some of the information related to the existing public utilities that were there. and that's adequate now, so we had no further comments.
Okay. And Kayla?
So just a reminder to the Planning Commission that this site is currently zoned agricultural. It falls between residential development to the north by 30 Mile Road, and then down to the south is the Romeo Square condominiums that was approved by the Planning Commission last year, and includes multiple commercial outlots. There are 13 criteria for you to review with rezoning applications. I would just remind the Planning Commission that the applicant submitted a conceptual site plan with this application, but this was not a conditional rezoning request. That site plan that was submitted is not tied to this application and shouldn't be considered with the rezoning request itself. The applicant is proposing retaining the local commercial zoning that currently exists along Van Dyke Avenue. This is a split zoned site, and the proposed rezoning is consistent with your master plan, the suburban residential to the west of Van Dyke Avenue and the local commercial along Van Dyke Avenue itself. So we did recommend approval of this rezoning request contingent on that development impact statement. The Planning Commission has the ability to waive any of the requirements of that development impact statement, but it sounds like the applicant is working with the company to provide those maps that were deficient. And we're happy to answer any other questions on that.
Sounds good. I did have one question for the developer. I know you guys have proposed this as an R1D. Was there any consideration to, or any limitations that would prevent you from going to an R1C?
Do you want to address that in terms of the thoughts of development? This is Michael Demelli's developer.
The site with the request, it is, in our opinion, the best fit for that. Not saying the other one's a bad deal, but the fit for what we are proposing is needed, and it's the right fit. Yeah, we do have a large fee, as you know, that we have to pay as well for the water and sewer rights. That's basically to that site. It's $700,000 or $800,000 that's owed, is what I'm told. I don't know.
The debt service?
The sewer was extended to this property as well as many others around it through a special assessment district. So yeah, because of its acreage, this was, I think, the largest parcel on this side of M53. So it did have a larger proportional share because it's based on acreage.
And one other thing, Mr. Miller, there is about 6 acres to the west that are as part of this parcel. That's going to be larger lots. We retain larger lots to sort of transition to the larger lots that are, to the east. And there are larger lots further east, and so the transition between the larger lots of this 5 or 6 acres to the smaller lots and then commercial to the south.
Well, that's tying it to a site that we can't use in our determination. We can't, you're saying you're going to keep larger lots there, but we have no,
No, I know.
you know what I mean? This isn't a conditional where we could use your site.
You asked for the consideration and
Yeah.
how the consideration went.
Okay.
That was the consideration, sort of a transition, and this was part of a larger development, larger lots to the east, smaller lots towards Van Dyke, and then commercial to the south.
Yeah, now, that's my fear, would be the idea that we have the larger lots to the east, and then we're going to jump right into the R1D without any kind of transition. I know a lot of the lots do conform to the R1C. but-
Well, the 5 acres is owned by the developer, it's part of the development, and it'll remain the larger lot development. We're not asking that piece be
Okay, that portion's
rezoned.
going to stay the R1, that's
Yes.
right, that's right.
Sorry.
Okay.
And also, this parcel was recommended in the master plan for sort of mid to higher density, not necessarily multifamily, but smaller lots.
Yeah, it was recommended for either C or D, so, okay. That was my question. You guys have any questions?
Yeah, well, you stole my question, but I wanted to dig a little deeper into that.
I'm the chair, I got first dibs.
Very, very astute question. I love that question, Barry. To follow up, I was looking at the same thing, and I'm looking at the area surrounding you. Now, there's no residential to the south. That's going to be commercial. If I look west of you, it's all very large lot development. So the only really, comparable area is across 31 Mile to the north. and I look at our zoning, if you go north of 31 Mile, there's about, there's 3 or 4 streets up there that are neighborhoods that'll be comparable. Barbara Ann, Crestline, Chesapeake, Sharon Lee, those streets up there. I was doing a comparable density, sort of, look at them, and there are some lots up there that are, 12,000 square foot category, a lot of 14s, 20s, on up to 60-some thousand square feet and larger. So when I look at this from the standpoint of what fits with that area, I realize the idea in the master plan is a sort of a transitional zone. And I think that's not a bad idea. But I think along the same lines as Barry, perhaps R1C zoning would better suit this area in that it would better match the existing neighborhoods around that area rather than the R1D. It would be a bit of an outlier to have that many units in that small of an area based on what's been developed near you. So that's my thinking on it. I'd rather see us look at something that is still within our master plan, but more closely matches the neighborhoods that are developed there already.
Well, something to take into consideration along those lines, we are also buying the center next door, and behind it, I am told that the assessment will be granted for water and sewer as well, and that is multiple. So I believe that is consistent with that, because that is multiple. It's right next to it. Literally, it's like a continuation. The parcels touch.
You're talking about the parcel to the south that would be
South,
behind the
that's correct.
Tractor Supply?
Correct. The piece behind it is going, my understanding.
Oh, yeah,
and
that's right. It was one of the lots in that,
That's going to be a commercial condo development.
Condo.
Is that back one have a multifamily?
That's
think
what I was told.
Overlay.
I hope it
Overlay
does.
on that?
it does.
Yeah, and the other consideration is when you start comparing is the lot, the land directly to the south is commercial. It's not residential.
Right.
So there's a transition, a little higher density, lower density, lower density.
My concern in granting any zoning change is that, not so much what you guys are going to do. I know you've submitted a sample of what you're thinking you might do, but once we make a zoning change, it sticks with the property. 6 months from now, I'm not saying you will, but you guys could get bored and walk away, sell it to somebody else who could do a completely different development there and push some boundaries we maybe don't want pushed. So I'm always very concerned when we look at rezoning and densities, and what could, your intent versus what a future person could do.
Understand that, even if developer walks away in worst case scenario, it is sort of this density, but it'll be this density. It'll have to be, the next person will have to develop it within this density. They're not gonna come in and put apartments or even smaller lots.
Other than a financial hardship, would it be, would you be able to accommodate a larger lot size there and still develop that property?
I don't think so. I don't think the economics will let us do it. There is, well, no secret in today's world, everything's expensive. No secret, in today's world, everything's expensive, and we're looking at a roughly $1,500 a foot for road, water, sewer, utilities. You divide that out, it's into the millions. I didn't do the actual thing yet, because we're not quite that far, but doing some in the past, I can tell you that's where we're going to land. And when you add in the cost of the property, you add in holding cost, you add in the assessment, you add in all these factors, and meeting the criteria of the master plan, and the factors that John had mentioned, that, we are abutting our own property to the west, which we are holding those lots like it should be appropriately for that. For the east, it is commercial. To the south, it is industrial-like commercial. And then to the southwest, the back is multiple. I think I think it fits perfectly, actually. But of course, I might be jaded, of course, because it's my parcel, but I believe it fits perfectly.
Again, as you mentioned, this is not a conditional rezoning, so these factors may not be what you consider, but there are issues with developing part of the parcel as well with drains and wetlands and areas. So
Yeah,
the
there's
whole area is not usable. Some will not be usable.
Yeah, I believe there's going to be around 6 acres that will be wetlands where the drain comes through. We won't be touching that at all. That'll remain in pristine order. That's why we went to the property next door to access off of Van Dyke, so that we aren't crossing that stream, or we're not even looking at that, we're going around it, so.
No. So, but the property next door that you just mentioned, that's not being rezoned in any way, that is just, did you buy that property, or are you just being deeded access there?
No, we closed on the 2 parcels already. Telling all my tales out of school here, but we planned on closing on everything by now, but there is some tidiness that needs to be done in order to meet the request of the city for the previous owner when they got the culverts put in. My understanding is they have a few things that they have to address, so.
We were just referring to the residential parcel. Yes, he's closed on.
Oh, yeah, we own that outright, yeah, I'm sorry.
Right. No, I was referring to
confused.
the condominium parcel, it's going to be the lower access road. Is that
Yes,
right?
we own that outright as well,
Okay.
those 2 parcels currently. And again, we would have closed on the whole center had the work been done. There's some things that need to be, you probably are aware of them, or somebody's aware of them here, that needs to be taken care of, and then we'll close on that as well.
Okay, thank you.
So on the drawing where it shows 1 through 6, that is yours as well? That is
Just the 2 up front. Let's
Just-
see.
Just
Let me
1
make
and
sure.
2?
No.
No,
No, those 6.
They own that.
they own that, and it'd be the west side of the proposed road, which is obviously not a real thing yet. But that is the area you're trying to keep those at a, what would those are considered R1A?
A.
A1.
Those would
Yes.
fall
Those
into
are zoned A1.
or in 1A1?
Those will be 1 acre lots on that side, yes.
Okay. And, all right. Yeah. So kind of encapsulates it. So the,
This is where the multifamily is zoned.
the multifamily is zoned,
Down, the Tractor Supply would sit.
no, it's back here, I believe. I think Tractor Supply sits here, and it comes back over.
It's an overlay.
It's in,
Yeah.
That's future land use map, multifamily overlay. There's no zoning or proposals.
Yeah, this is
Correct terminology.
okay. Any further discussion from the commission? With the new information, it is commonplace for us to, I know the public hearing is closed. If any of the public would like to comment on any of the new material, they're welcome to come to the podium.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Mike Bickman. I live on the west side of the proposed development. And when you say new information, what were you looking at?
With the development impact statements that they submitted, they're really,
Okay. Can I make some general comments about?
sure can.
Okay. So some of my concerns, which I've talked about in the past a little bit, is, number one, I've lived in Washington Township for 40 years, 30 years at the current site, current residence. And I'm concerned about, large excavations behind us. We live on a hill, and then so it gradually goes downhill into the orchard. So I'm concerned about our wells going dry. I'm not sure how much excavating is going to happen with this subdivision. It's happened at other places in Michigan. When 25 wells went dry over by Ann Arbor in 2023 due to a large development. So that's one of my concerns. Another concern is the traffic, of course, and what I'm looking when I look at the current possible or proposed development, the roads. I think that there's going to be a lot of people cutting through the sub to avoid 31 of Van Dyke, which is a nightmare. And any night that around rush hour, I don't know if anybody drives up there or not, but it's pretty ugly. And so I'm concerned about that, which would be a road going right behind my house, basically. And the wildlife impact. We have multiple. We have deer. We have turkeys. We have you name it out there. Fox, coyotes. It's all going away apparently. And currently, I don't know if you can see this or not, but they tore out all the trees, and I've got a large. That's what I look at every day, a huge pile of trees behind my house. So and then it just came to a halt. It's not bad if they're going to grind it up, get rid of it, or whatever, but I'm concerned about that sitting there all summer and the fire hazard, possible fire hazard, so. So those are some of my concerns. And then I'm listening to Mr. DeMille earlier, the lots behind my house are going to be larger lots, which is great. But what's to say in years to come that he doesn't try to rezone that as well,
If he did, he'd have to come back here.
Right, I understand. So, is this all set in stone if it's approved now for the orchard? Is this, the 6 lots going to remain that size? Is there anything saying it's going to change in the future? No, I don't know.
This plan is not a plan that's tied to what this is rezoned. However, they are not rezoning the lots behind.
I understand.
What you're talking.
I understand.
So those would have to stay in the R1A, right?
Okay.
A1.
A1, I'm sorry,
A1, right?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
not part of the request.
So it's not part of the rezoning. So
Okay,
those would be tied to size requirements of that district.
then if our wells do have problems, what's the township going to do about it, Is there anything, any precedent or any protocol that's, happened in the past?
I have no idea.
In the past, in township projects, if we've affected people's wells, those have been taken care of. This would be a private civil matter between them, the state of Michigan, and, from a well standpoint, if they're necessary, if they're dewatering that much water, they have to get a permit from the state to do so, and those implications are usually weighed during that
And
permit
that's
process.
through Eagle.
It is, yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Of the developer, I had one more, or actually, never mind, it's more for Mike and staff. With that road coming out across the street from, I believe it's Sisson, if that road were to come out directly across, I know the Macomb County Department of Roads has standards of offsets and whatnot, and would that, they
They
usually try
receive-
to align them, correct?
Well, they'll receive, so when we receive any submission, it goes out to county and state agencies.
Yeah.
So they do receive that, and they have the opportunity to provide the comments back with regards to that and what other improvements might be necessary.
Okay.
So it would be at that time.
I know
they
that
would
was
be
a
doing
major
that.
concern from the public comment before, was that the two roads coming to a head at the same point, and I think that's pretty commonplace with most subdivisions, they try to align them.
Again, without a site plan attached to this, we're not considering
Right.
that graphic per se, but
Right.
I would say that that's going to be a challenge to figure out how that should work
And that's
if
something
this was to
you'll
move forward.
have
as
to
development.
iron out when they come back with an actual site plan, and roads would
Yeah.
have to actually weigh in on that.
Let me make a quick comment. The reason for that is there's an ordinance about the road being a certain number
Yeah.
of feet from the property line of the person who's not part of the subdivision on that corner there, so
Yeah.
it will have to be figured out.
I just wanted to bring it up because I know it was a major concern at the public comment last meeting.
Even without that offset, they're still not lining up based on where the existing home is. There's not physical space
Okay.
there.
Fair enough. Any other public comment?
Yeah, I'm gonna come up. I'm gonna come up here. I was here last time. And I live on Bush Court, Matt Fritz, and I built Bush Court back about 50-some years ago. I was one of the first private roads in Washington Township. In other words, wasn't a whole lot going on. So anyways, I've lived there for, since I built 77, 78. So anyways, as you can see on the thing there, I live right in the back lot there on the side. I don't know if you can see it, but I live right there in the woods there, and there's 4 parcels there, 2-acre parcels. So anyways, now they have a new development they want to pass through here and putting 6 lots next to me. Okay, and then the back part there is vacant. And the reason that's vacant because there's a moat there, and that's about 100 foot wide and probably 30, 40 feet deep, so they can't cross that. If they could, they'd probably want to build there too, but they can't because of the way it's the layout. So anyways, that's fine and dandy. Now, Washington Township was always in favor of low density. Always, they wanted low density for for as long as I can remember. And now all of a sudden, we got this thing planned next to me, putting 75 houses, and there are condos, not even houses, the size of these condos are probably about the size of my garage. My garage is about 1,000 feet. So now they're going to put 75 of these with all these people surrounding next to me, and it would be on a westerly thing. There's only like 10 houses on 40 acres. And now they want to put 75 condos the size of my garage right on 35 acres. I mean, it's just not right. And this is on 31 Mile Road. Now, Washington Township also made an ordinance, I don't know how you find it, I can't find it because there's so many things out there, that they said you cannot put a road next to private property. Now, I don't know if that's a private road, but they told me back this is a long time ago, 45 years ago, you cannot put a road next to private property. And this thing is sitting right next to, there's a red brick home there, and I don't know if the owner's here or not. But anyways, if I was the owner there, there's 6 houses there. If you see where I'm looking at on 31 there?
Yeah, absolutely.
And anyways, that house right on the corner there, it's a red brick house, and I don't know who lives there. I think it's an elderly person there or something. And theoretically, you cannot put a private road. They made an ordinance in Washington Township, you cannot put a private road next to the property, a private piece of property. And this was enacted because of my situation there. It was kind of in retaliation against me with Washington Township that you cannot put a road next to private property. Now, what I see is the road is 40 feet, well, it's 30 feet, but they got to go another 10 foot. So they're going to skirt the issue by going over 40 feet and put this private road down there that shouldn't even be there to begin with. So I think we got a real problem here, and I think legally there should be something in the township ordinance about putting a road next to a piece of private property. I'm not sure, there's so many ordinances in there, I'm a little bit I can't keep up with that stuff, I'm just too old for that. But they passed a law here in Michigan, or in Washington Township, an ordinance that you cannot put a road next to private property. And I'm thinking the developer figures, well, let's move this over 30 feet or 40 feet. It shows 30, but she says 40, so that I can bypass that ordinance. And so what we need to do, Washington Township, I feel, should look this ordinance up. Now, we're talking 35, 40, 45 years ago. And now the question is, did they change that ordinance? If they did, I'd like to know where they changed it. Because I was a developer, and I developed property there, and I know all about it. I've been here for 75 years. So, and I think a lot of people out here, they don't want to see a road down there. I don't know, but it's ridiculous what they got going on there. And to put that private road or that road down there where it's going, can you imagine the traffic? 31 Mile Road's a gravel road now. And they want to put all this housing there. And Sisson Street's only a 2-lane road. That's crazy to put all this, because you got 75 houses. That means there's going to be 300, 250 people living there, and they're going to have probably 200 cars going in and out of these exits, one on Van Dyke and one here, and they're only a quarter of a mile away from the light. So anyways, my contention is this thing doesn't belong there. It's way overcrowded to begin with, and it's too crowded now. Without this, the traffic is terrible.
All right.
So I know my time's up, but I just want to say something here.
I appreciate the comment.
I'll just add a quick clarification for the public. So the site plan that was submitted, again, I know it's a little bit confusing because it was submitted with the application itself, but for the rezoning request, there's no tie to that site plan. So we're not reviewing that site plan for its compliance with zoning standards right now. We're only looking at the rezoning to the R1D. There are standards in the ordinance related to a distance that the road has to be from a property line. That's something we would evaluate in the future if a development application came in. There are also requirements related to the size of housing units in different zoning districts. So that's another thing that we would be looking at. But again, we can't consider those things when it comes to a rezoning application.
Well stated. Ma'am?
My name is Deborah Martin. I spoke here last month about my disapproval of what's going on here. I disagree with Mr. DeMille. This is not a perfect fit, okay? You cannot have homes on top of homes, and I don't know what your plan is, but if you change the zoning, then you have that opportunity to pack it full of homes. And the people in this area didn't move out here to be on top of homes. If I want that, I'll go back to Detroit. And I grew up in this area. I was a Detroit police officer, and I know the difference between but I grew up in Romeo, and my dad was the constable in Ray Township for 30, 40 years, so I will say there is a big difference between density and non-density. So, you know, be careful what you're trying to get. It's not a perfect fit. You want to make a lot of money, do it in an area where you're not going to impose on so many people, please.
All right. Any further comments from the commission? I'm still struggling with the D. I don't think it's, I understand there's a cost to doing business, but I also see R1A along 31 Mile, although those lots are smaller. Some of your lots are geared towards an R1C, and making it an R1C from a D is doable. It's just a matter of how wide you want to make those lots. I don't know. I'm struggling with that. I don't know what your thoughts are.
I agree with you and John.
I support your.
It's good to know that we're supported.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got the same issues, and I think, you know, and we'll get to it in a minute, we just had, you know, if we look at the direction we're going in the township, and, you know, what we're looking for, I think staying within the bounds of the master plan is, you know, is required. But I think we look at what we can accomplish under the master plan.
Well, finish your thoughts, and if you'd like to go to the
If you want to come back up,
podium.
that's fine, I don't mind him coming up and speaking again. But, you know, I think there's a balance. I have looked at this from those chairs out there and from these seats up here. I tend to weigh a little more heavy, and I've said this before when other developers go into the rights of the existing property owners versus developers, the people who've got a stake, who've been here, who've lived here. You know, we have a difficult job to do. There are laws that require us to make certain decisions. We cannot take away somebody's property rights. But we have to find the balance for the community within their rights and within the scope of what we can do as a board. And I am tending to lean towards the R1C density rather than the R1D on this.
I know the one thing we have to watch, though, is this is being proposed as an R1D. We don't have the right to say, hey, we're okay with it being a C. That has to be offered by the petitioner to be done. But we are either to approve or deny
Right.
a D today.
And if we're not happy with the aggregate density, we can always deny, and if they
could.
want to resubmit, they can, or they can ask for it to be tabled,
True.
to have more discussion.
Yeah.
So did you want to comment?
Well, what I was just going to mention is we weren't doing anything outside of the master plan. That's what the engineer and I came up with. We are not interested for asking Overreach to go get something that is not part of the master plan. We're falling within the master plan. And that's, I would assume you had many people work on that master plan to come up with what you did. And I'm finding it hard to believe that you would go against the people that put the master plan together that came up with that.
Yeah, but the master plan says C or D.
Okay, true.
So
But I'm saying we're not-
it leaves a little bit of leverage from us to say, you know what? Does a C fit? Does a D fit?
I can see that, but being that we have multiple that's adjacent, we have in commercial that's adjacent, we have isolated where we've got larger lots all right. We tried to buffer it the best we could so that there is no impact or very little. Now, of course, we've heard that there's other opinions, but of course, Mr. Fritz was a builder at one time, and I would think his opinion is different than it was back then when he was a builder. I'm assuming it's different because he's not building right now. I do believe that what we're proposing is not condos, it's single-family residential. It is not condos. Even though, I guess condos could be considered residential, it is, but it's not a condo, it's single-family houses is what we're building. So that, I just wanted to correct that. And the one other gentleman had mentioned about the traffic, maybe cutting through the sub, and that's possible. I mean, can't say I haven't done it occasionally myself. However, we can temper that, if that is a major concern, by reducing the speed limit through the sub where it might be like not any more of a shortcut if you got to go 10, 12 miles, 15 miles an hour. And I'm assuming everybody in that sub would like it to be slowed down because I'm assuming there'll be lots of young families coming in.
If it's a public road, it'll be 25. You can't set speed limits on a public road, is my understanding, correct?
That's
We can
correct.
petition for it, though. We
Okay.
could request it,
Can
right?
request, good.
Yeah,
You can request.
yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
Kayla has set out in page 1 and 2 of her review, the review criteria that is set forth in your zoning ordinance. And that's what this commission needs to look at when deciding whether or not the rezoning is appropriate for Washington Township. There are 13 specific things for you guys to consider.
Thank you.
And any motion should include reference to as
13.
many of those that are applicable.
11? Wait. It's 11, isn't it?
I've got 11.
11. 11 standard?
Did we miss it?
Well, there's,
No, she's,
The
front of the
review
letter, at the beginning of the letter.
Yeah,
right,
Where?
I would
on-
use that list.
Oh, your
Those are
letter.
On your
Yes.
letter, yes,
Kayla's are,
So you
section
went into more detail.
7.12.e of the zoning ordinance.
yes.
It's got a review criteria, there's 13 things to look at and analyze.
Get to Kayla's letter. Did you have something more you wanted to add?
It seems that there may be, I don't know if confusion is the right word, but additional calculation maybe from board members. If you feel you need more time to consider this, we would consider agreeing to table this till the next meeting.
If you would like to take another look at what you've submitted and discuss with the professionals on, some different avenues of approach, I'd be happy to entertain a motion to make a motion to table if you want more time to look at this again.
No, this is the plan we're submitting. We've met with the professionals. We spent time with these people before we submitted the application. We spent time with our own hired professionals, and they believe this fits within the master plan. It seems that the board seems to be wrestling with this decision,
Yeah,
excuse
like
me.
I said, I
And
know
we-
I am struggling. I'm just
I guess-
struggling with the C to a D, or the A to a D, and I know there's, that's the issue I'm having. And I know the master plan, the future land use does allow for the D to go in. I just,
To be fair, though, our master plan sits as a guideline. It's not a legal binding, zoning. It is a recommendation for future land use.
Yeah.
So it doesn't carry the weight that zoning carries.
I mean, there's developers' rights and land rights and all that too, and that's the part I'm struggling with, because I know what they're looking to do is not far-fetched. It is along the guidelines. If you do reach through 1 through 11, how many of those things can you discount?
And let me ask you this question. We come back with an R1C, but it includes the entire property, including the piece to the west, and now those are smaller lots to the west, and the transition's gone, right? I mean,
It's true.
this was a plan put together in conjunction with the entire area, including the commercial to the south, which Mr. DeMille will control and own shortly. It works in terms of southern access to the property, southeast access to the property, which allays traffic. We did submit a traffic study that he spent a lot of money on with professionals that showed it has a minor impact at most in terms of this density. Not the plan per se, but what the maximum amount of homes in this density would affect. So likely less homes are going to be in the maximum density because we have unusable space. And so that was not, for nothing. It was submitted for a reason for you to consider.
looking at the map, is the eastern portion of that property in any way developable? And there's terrain over there that's very steep. It is, you know, is it possible to develop that side, or is it just beyond the scope of what?
Along the drain?
Yeah.
Yeah, as a residential development with multiple units, no. I mean, you could probably find a place to put a house in there in the course of how many acres, and if I tell you no, you can put a house there maybe somewhere. I don't know, I'm not a professional in that realm. But no, you cannot put site condo lots there.
And that is one of the other things, not looking specifically at a site plan, but when we look at the size of these lots, or these developments, and, you know, when you look at the property that could be developed if that were just a clean, flat piece of property, certainly there was an opportunity to put a lot more units in there at that density if there were no challenges with terrain and other encumbrances. So-
It's de facto, it's not by law, but it's de facto sort of an open space portion of the property. We can't use it over here, so we use it over there. Also, as has been brought up, the homes along 31 Mile Road, although they are developed in R1A, the lots are essentially the same size as the lots in this development. I'm assuming those were older homes that were grandfathered in, or.
Yeah, they're similar. The two larger lots in the middle are probably larger than what you have, but the other ones are very similar in nature.
So I'll just address that comment that came up. So on this site, there are existing water bodies. There's a county drain. There's also open ponds. Your ordinance actually requires that those be preserved and that a 25-foot greenbelt buffer remains around those. So just to answer that specific piece, yes, there are portions of this site that would not be developable under your zoning ordinance.
I think we're ready to rule on this, right?
You know, one more thing that I didn't bring up.
I-
Sure, of course, was the water line.
I-
The water line they're putting in comes from Van Dyke down to the property.
Any review of the engineering will be done at that time once a proposal is in place. We're not going to address how they're getting their water, where they're getting water. It's going to be legally done, and if it can't be done, then they're not going to be able to do it,
there's
so.
another, meeting for that, or another,
This plan, as we've stated several times, is not a plan for development. It is conceptual only to give us an idea of what they could potentially develop. It has nothing to do with what would be approved tonight. This would be strictly a zoning of the property, and at a later date, we don't know when, they could come back with a plan to develop the parcel, and then we will apply our standards to that parcel. But as of right now, this is just the rezoning so they can start the process to move forward to try to develop.
seems like they've already moved forward, because if you look at the property, it's been told they destroyed all.
Well, Mr. Fritz, I'll stop you right there because technically, most developers now, they farm the land before they develop the land. And there's a lot of good that comes from farming a land before you develop a land. So the idea that we could hold them accountable for taking down trees and prepping a land for farming is not within our rights. You know, there's a right to farm, and we're not stepping on that. So them doing what they're proposing, they've started doing, we've been told is for the purpose of farming. So at this time, I think it's, where do you want to go with this, John? I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I think all things considered, when we look at the criteria, and one of those is consistency with the master plan, and it sits in there. The site is compatible. These are the criteria that we have to use in order to judge these developments. It is an allowed use. I'm not 100% there, but there will be a development and engineering phase where we get to relook at the development. But from a strictly rezoning standpoint, I don't think that they are outside the scope of what we're allowing in the township and have allowed for other developers. So with that, I think I would like to make a motion to approve the rezoning, in that the use is compatible with the. Let me go to get the legal description.
Oh,
Yeah.
you want
I need to, okay, I got it right here.
Yeah. You just
Okay,
have to go through the 11 standards.
yeah, I'm going to make a motion to approve the rezoning request for the Groves at Washington, which consists of 36.6 acres out of the total 40.247 acres associated with parcel number 240411101016 from A1 agricultural residential to R1D single-family residential, based on the following findings of fact, that it is compatible with the master plan for Washington Township. The utilities are sufficient to service the development, and the street systems are sufficient based on the traffic study to accommodate the rezoning. It looks as if it will be able to meet the dimensional regulations. And this requested rezoning is a logical extension of the existing districts in the area and of the master plan. It does not create an isolated or spot zone based on the consistency with our master plan and the properties to the south. It has not been previously submitted. And are there any other factors for engineering or that we need to include in this before we?
The development impact statement,
The missing,
either waiving or requesting them to submit, the information which they stated that they would submit.
yeah, I would say
Okay,
they
that-
follow through with the,
Subject to this, the receiving the material, the information for the developmental impact statement. I think that should get us there.
any
And
other.
Mr. Chair, to qualify, this is a recommendation for approval, not an approval.
Yeah, This goes
The
to
township board is the
board.
final decision-making body.
Add that to your motion.
And that this motion is a recommendation to the board for approval of the rezoning.
Okay. I will, I'll second that. Roll call, Dana?
Mr. Chaplin?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Robb?
No.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-1. Thank you. And we can move forward to item 8B, Yatesview Estates, preliminary condominium review of 56 single-family residential condo units, parcel 2404, 26-300-004. Oops, got loud for a minute. And on the north side of 27 Mile, east of Jewel Road. Is petitioner here tonight?
Perfect, thank you.
If we could quiet down a little, guys, he's going to present.
Want me to jump in?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Thank you for having us back. My name is Jim Epping. I'm a land planner and landscape architect located in Auburn Hills, and I'm here tonight representing Vanguard Properties. Mike Dinello is with us, as well as our civil engineer, Jason Rickert, so we're here to answer all your questions. We've been here before, and we appreciate your time. We are here tonight to talk about Yatesview Estates. Yatesview Estates is one of 4 neighborhoods that was approved within the Clifton Corners PUD, which is both to the east and the west of Jewel Road on 17 Mile. We're talking specifically about that triangle in the lower right-hand corner there. That is 36 acres, and it is bound on the north by the Yates Drain, and then on the south by 27 Mile Road. Again, it's one of 4 properties that was 4 neighborhoods that was originally approved in 2022 within the Clifton Corners. Interestingly, and I wasn't involved with the original Clifton Corners, interestingly, the other 3 neighborhoods had specific designs that were considered and approved as part of the PUD. This neighborhood was approved as part of that PUD and had just a couple criteria attached to it. We've been here before, we've listened closely to both your planning commission, the township board, the township ZBA. We've made modifications tonight, and so I want to go through those tonight. The original PUD was approved for a maximum of 63 homes. We have modified our plan, and we are now proposing 56 homes, so we've scaled that down. It was proposed, or was approved to have a minimum of 80-foot wide lots. We've modified our plan, and now our minimum is 85 foot, and many are quite a bit larger than 85 foot wide. The minimum approved lot area was 9,600. Our minimum is 10,200, all the way up to 1,500 square feet per lot, so we've increased that. It was approved to have 15% open space. Technically, we have 15% open space, but we'll show in a slide in a minute, we have an awful lot more green space. So there's technical open space and then green space, so we exceed that standard as well. There's a requirement that they would be public roads, and our roads are proposed to be public roads. And then the last criteria was that it was required that there be brick and stone on the first floor exterior. We're satisfying that and increasing some of that stone and masonry opportunities, particularly along the front, so we're exceeding that objective as well. Our site plan looks similar to what you have seen in the past, and frankly, it's kind of a requirement of the unusual triangular shape. Triangles are difficult to design, but we're really excited about this. We've got a nice road system that allows walkability. We've got sidewalks. Again, we've increased all the lots to a minimum of 85 foot. What's great about this is 70% of the lots back up to open space. There's 19 homes that back up to each other in the middle there, but 70% of the homes actually have a much larger visual backyard than would be a typical subdivision or neighborhood. We've mentioned before that the site is, has the benefit, has the opportunity of a lot of natural systems, environmental systems within it. We're maintaining all those. There's wetlands, there's floodplains, there's buffers. We were approved previously to just mitigate off-site through paying through a wetland bank, working with Eagle to mitigate some of the original farmers' ditches. So those technically, by today's standards, could be considered wetlands, but they really are just those farmers' ditches. All the natural wetlands, all the natural floodplains, all the natural features will remain on site. This is a graphic that is in your packet. That the bright green is our technical open space, but all the space behind it is what I would just call green space. That's an environmental issue. So when you net all that together, greater than 35% of our site will remain green, essentially neighborhood use areas or environmental preservation areas. So at least 35% will remain that green space. We've modified our lot sizes. Previously, we came to you asking for 80-foot wide lots with a consideration for a reduction of the side setbacks and the front side and rear setbacks. The board, the ZBA, your commission all said no thank you, and we heard that loud and clear, and so we're coming here tonight with 85-foot lots, larger lots, maintaining the R1A setback. So we've got a 60-foot setback in the front to the center line, a 40-foot rear setback, 15 and 15 on each side. So those meet the R1A standards, which your commission was clear about, and so we're happy to do that. Again, 70% of the homes back to green areas. What's great about the development, because of the environmental areas, because of our landscape, all of our perimeter setbacks around the entire neighborhood exceed the ordinance standards. So we have larger setbacks than would normally be considered. We'll go through it a little bit. Our landscape along 27 Mile Road, we've got great landscape throughout the neighborhood, but particularly the Washington Township, as landscape architect, the township ordinance for landscaping is aggressive, and we've met it and we've exceeded it. So it's going to be a beautiful landscape, great entrance walls and so forth. We do have EVA, emergency vehicle access, to the to the west of our property. And we've reviewed the fire department's letters. They all make sense to us. We'll have a gate on there just for emergency vehicles. There will be the Knox box system. We'll work with the fire department to ensure that we meet their standards. And of course, on those entrance road and that emergency access, there'll be no parking. Other than that, we would anticipate parking on one side of the street. And of course, we'll take the police and fire's direction on which side that is, probably the alternate side of where the fire hydrants will be. From a landscape point of view, again, there are some existing trees on site. We've maintained as many of those as possible. We do have a requirement to replace 21. Actually, we took down about 10 trees beyond what your ordinance would require. You have a double replacement requirement, and so we're putting 21 additional trees in to satisfy that. But beyond that, we have well over 100 new trees in hundreds of shrubs and things going in throughout the neighborhood, particularly along 27 Mile Road with the berm. Our architecture, we're going to offer 2 different size homes, style homes. There'll be many variations of architecture and building materials, all with that masonry. We'll have a 3,000 square foot colonial home, a 2-story home. That'll have different elevations and different features, but that'll be a 3,000 square foot home. We'll also have a 2,300 square foot ranch home or single level living home, all with obviously attached garages, driveways. These are really intended to be just beautiful homes, add to the Washington Township community. And so we're excited about the architecture, the materials, and the kind of 2 size homes. We think it makes a better neighborhood so that not everything is the same. You get a better collection of residents in terms of looking for different things, both older and younger, first floor master, second floor master, those type of things. So we're trying to cover our bases within the 56 homes. With the reports, and we've received both from Giffords Webster, Spalding D. Decker, and obviously all your departments, we appreciate the time that they went through. There were a few comments that I wanted to talk about. There is a sanitary system notion that we are putting in a pump station. Ultimately, and I think Mr. Kozak in the past said maybe even 20 years from now, who knows, ultimately the goal is to expand that system, and ultimately perhaps the sanitary system flows east. But for the time being, we're putting in a pump station and we're proposing a force main to go to the west. In this last review, both from the sewer and water department as well as from Giffords Webster, there's a suggestion that we coordinate with the proposed development or the approved development across the street, Kingsridge, and potentially link into that sanitary system. We're not against that. Our objective is, if that's available at the time when we're building, we'll certainly work with the township, and if that connection, I guess is what I'm saying, is available and already in place, we'll do that. If for some reason that development is held up, we still would like to reserve the right to go to the west as was originally approved or proposed. 27 and Jewel planned improvements that came up a few times. Again, as part of this PUD, and part of the approved PUD documents that are on record is Yatesville Estates participates in that. We pay into that. The PUD documents state that once the first neighborhood within Clifton Corners is under development, that road improvement will take place. It's my understanding that I think the southwest development is underway, and so they'll lead that. We'll pay into that through the PUD agreement and be part of that, but they'll lead that charge. Entrance light, we can certainly adjust our entrance light. I thought that we spec'd a single double pole light at the entranceway from a Michigan company out of Farmington Hills. They're telling us that it's night sky compliant, but we'll certainly work with the township to either make sure it is or adjust that accordingly. PUD document in the agreement, those documents, we've already made some modifications of those related to this development. I believe that they're with the township now in that review stage, and we'll continue to work closely with you. Sewer, water, fire, all the other departments, again, we've reviewed those reports. They all seemed favorable to the development, and really the next stage, as you pointed out with the previous applicant, is to get into the nuts and bolts of the engineering and so forth, and so we'll continue to work closely with that. So with that, we appreciate a lot of time that you've spent with us. We're here to answer questions, and we would appreciate your consideration for preliminary approval so that we can move on to engineering.
You've done a nice job. I'm very happy with the changes that were made, and obviously it falls in line with what we had envisioned when Clifton first came. So I'm good with this. You have any comments, Kayla, beyond the night sky? I know most things were addressed. Or the dark sky, not the night sky.
It's close.
The night.
Yeah, from our end, everything was addressed except for, again, that dark sky compliant light. And it's a specific standard that requires the IDA certification, so that's.
I saw your link there, and I went to it, so we'll make that
Yep.
adjustment.
Yep, I have no issue with that. Just a reminder again, because we have a lot of public in the room, this development is part of a planned unit development agreement that was in place in 2022, I believe, is when it was initially approved. So when we review this application for preliminary condominium review, the first thing we're looking at is that PUD agreement. Those are kind of the standards that override everything. Whenever there's a question or the PUD agreement itself doesn't address a specific standard, then we refer to that R1A zoning district and any other ordinance standards within your zoning ordinance or land division ordinance. So they have, with these changes, met all of those requirements. I'll just add that there was an amendment that was requested to the PUD agreement to allow mitigation of those non-significant wetlands. That was approved by the Board of Trustees, and so we looked at that when we were doing our review. The next step for this application would be that it go through engineering review with your township engineer and public works department. It will then come back to this body for final condominium approval. So just providing that overarching summary. Feel free to.
Mike, any comment?
I think they addressed our concerns with the sanitary sewer. That's something that we will have to work out in engineering. We have additional capacity information based on a study that the township's recently completed, so we'll go through that process that would normally be handled during engineering, but as indicated in our letter, our desire is for it to go south through the Kings Ridge site and not into Jewel Road.
Right. So that's stuff they'll work out through engineering, no issue for us moving forward with this. From legal, anybody, anything, Christine?
Not at this time.
Wait for final condo?
Correct.
Awesome. Anybody else?
No, just appreciate the work you did to get it to where it needed to get to. It's going to be, it's nice to see the work that's gone into it, all positive changes, and looking forward to seeing it come to life.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary condo submission for Yatesview Estates, a 56-unit, single-family condo development located at 2404 26 300 004, conditional on working with planning with the dark sky requirements and meeting any engineering requirements, going through review and submitting proper condo docs.
Support.
Roll call, Dana?
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Chaplin?
Yes.
Mr. Robb?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes. Motion passed.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, appreciate it. And move forward with the. All right, let's move forward to old business 8C, zoning ordinance, text amendments, continued discussion, impartial draft ordinance. Sorry. Purpose of reviewing the ordinances and making recommendations regarding regulations of data centers and large-scale industrial uses. I'm sorry. We, sorry. Been talking too much tonight. No, I'm good. We have our, I guess I'll turn it over to Kayla first, or do you want to introduce our noise expert?
Do you want me to do a filler introduction?
Why don't I start with the memo and then we can
Go for it.
Perfect.
Start at the beginning.
Not going all the way back to the beginning. But let's do a quick recap. So there were a few things in your packet. The first is a memo from us that basically takes our conversation from the last meeting and summarizes the items that were noted as major points of concern by the Planning Commission and the public. We looked through the ordinance to see which of those items are addressed currently and where those gaps are that we need to provide amendments for. So that was the basis from which we started the 50% ordinance draft. There were a number of things that we identified. One is the lack of use definitions. We talked about use type and the fact that we would need to define for particularly large-scale industrial uses and data centers, where those uses belong, which zoning districts, and whether they should be permitted, special land uses, or prohibited. There are application standards that we needed to address, so those are all summarized in that table. Development impact statement requirements, so that's the information that we would require an applicant to submit if they were proposing one of these uses, and strengthening those requirements early on so that the Planning Commission, if they received an application, could thoroughly review the impacts of proposed development. Noise is a big item that has come up, particularly for large-scale industrial and data centers. We have a noise expert here today that we'll introduce momentarily. But we did start to put together some standards, and I know our expert already has some feedback on that and is going to help us really strengthen that within the ordinance. We did take a look at lighting. So Washington Township has a really robust lighting ordinance. I know that you guys are familiar with this because my planning letters almost always push back on the applicant to provide that IDA dark sky certified lighting. So that's a particular type of fixture, but that also means that no lighting fixture within Washington Township for new development can go beyond that 3000 K color temperature. So that restricts lighting as well. And then there are some provisions about light trespass, not being able to see, like visibly see a light bulb from an adjacent property. Lots of things that kind of protect on the light side of things. Parking is another item that we know will need to be addressed for these uses, especially if, employment is not there. So right now our ordinance is based on square footage of buildings, but if you have large buildings that have a small number of employees, you're not going to want those Cs of parking. So that's something that we'll need to evaluate. It's not addressed yet in this 50% draft, but it's there on our radar. We know that that's something we're going to have to look at. Utility capacity and regulation. Your township engineer provided a lot of information related to water and sewer capacity, and also other entities that regulate some of that discharge. So we incorporated some of those recommendations, and I imagine there will be additional discussion on that item. There's also a land development and utility ordinance, which is not part of your zoning ordinance currently, but we noted that there may be some language that needs to be tweaked there, and we included that in this memo. And then finally, battery energy storage. We do have an expert that we, I believe, have we brought them on board officially now? I know there's been a recommendation from the board.
Not as far as I'm aware.
Okay. So we are working with someone to actually develop a battery energy storage ordinance, recognizing that these are often cited alongside large-scale industrial and data center uses. That's something that will be in the works. This person is also an expert on emergency response related to these centers. So we have that person on hand and look forward to working with them to strengthen standards. So that's a high-level overview. Attached to this memo, we did provide the 50% ordinance draft, and we can answer any questions on that, discuss that further as the Planning Commission sees fit tonight. We'd like to continue developing that over the next few months. In addition, we attached some further reading for the Planning Commission members. We recognize it's really important that you guys also have access to the materials that we're using as we are looking at various ordinance options and just getting an understanding of what data centers are, what their impacts are. And there's also some materials there related to large-scale industrial. So if you haven't already, we really encourage you to take a look at that and read through those resources. And then finally, I just want to provide a recap of that process for ordinance amendments. So again, this request has been initiated by the Board of Trustees, and the Planning Commission agreed that there are deficiencies that need to be addressed. We've been directed to work on this ordinance in tandem with those experts. We're doing so and would like to continue that work. The next step after ordinance amendments are fully developed would be a public hearing held by the Planning Commission. The hearing would be noticed. There'd be chances for public comment. After that public hearing, that's when the Planning Commission would have the ability to make a recommendation to the board. And of course, the Board of Trustees has the final say on any ordinance amendments. I know that's a lot of information. Are there any questions on those materials right now?
I think once we get into the 50% draft, few different things. I think, I'd obviously like to hear what he has to say. A lot of mine were to do with sound and instead of the DVCs, possibly even lower volume things that carry farther. And obviously, I'm sure he can weigh in on that a little bit and go a little further, see if it's something that we can regulate or if not. But it's just, there's a lot. So obviously, anybody, or Mike, I'd like to ask you, or to go over what you had said.
Yeah, so there's a separate memo in your packet that Kayla really used to kind of inform the items that are in that 50% draft. Some of the big things that we're asking you to consider, and some of the kind of low-hanging fruit is, these types of uses would not be permitted to ever connect to a well system. We would prohibit, as much as the township can, the construction of a private wastewater treatment facility. Got to be careful there because those are permitted through the state. So we'll work with legal counsel of how far we can go on that language. But obviously, we're trying to discourage, this being out in the middle of nowhere and someone saying, well, money's no object. I'll build whatever. It doesn't matter, right? I'll bring in my own plant. I'll put the deepest well in. It won't affect anybody else, all these things. So, it should be on township water, which is supplied by GLWA, and it should go into a public sewer system, which either goes to your wastewater treatment plant or to GLWA's plant down in Detroit. We talk about cooling systems being, closed loop systems. Along with that, obviously, comes some regulations related to those sewer discharges when those systems are cleaned or flushed, refilled, reused. We're working with GLWA right now to, let me back up a second. Your current ordinance is in place. You have a detailed industrial pretreatment ordinance in place that is essentially an adoption of the original DWSD ordinance, really pulled right into your ordinance. The language is the same. Some of the references are still saying DWSD when they should say GLWA, so that's going to be a good fix that we're going to make anyway. And it has some lists of items that are prohibited that, if tested, they should be non-detect in the wastewater that leaves things like, mercury and PCBs. There's other heavy metals that are listed as well that talk about some limits that can be there. The point being that there are standards in place that are kind of outside of the zoning ordinance that I think we need to re-examine and determine if there should be updates made that'll accelerate it and make it more stringent than what typically GLWA would say. This is particularly important because wastewater in this township goes to one of two places, either the plant you own and operate or the plant that they do. So working with them, we'll beef that up significantly to make sure that those items are covered. Really, the other big one is, as we're saying that this would be connected to a township system, it would be limiting how much water can actually be used on a per square foot basis for these types of uses. We can point to other kind of benchmarks that are already kind of in your, not kind of, they are in your ordinance related to what the assumptions are of what facilities use. If somebody came in tomorrow with a medical facility and it's 50,000 square feet, we're going to assign a capacity that we think that facility is going to use. But generally speaking, we don't limit the amount. If they want to pay for water, they can pay for the water. When you get into something this large, you have to start to pull back and say, well, there is a limit. When you're talking about a 1 million square foot facility or larger, you do that math very quickly, it's in the hundreds of thousands of gallons. While your system is robust and it can provide a lot of water, there is a limit to everything. There's a limit not just on what we can supply through the water system, but what we can take out into the sewers. And that's our more stringent limit typically. So our memo talks about some limits associated on a per square foot basis, kind of a range of recommendations that the Planning Commission should consider. A harder end and a little bit looser end that ties it more back to a traditional manufacturing facility. So, like I said, Kayla's kind of taken those items and pulled them out where applicable and placed them into the 50% draft that she has there, but my memo just provides a little bit more background on where those came from.
I know typically when you have water coming in, water coming out, water comes in, water comes out, there's usually...
Unless you're watering the grass.
Well, there's that. But I mean, if you're equating something like this where there's so much evaporation, that would be considered when they're discussing what they're doing with their sewer discharge, correct?
Right. I mean, then you're talking water quality of that discharge, right? What is in that water? There is, the potential for non-normal contaminants, non-normal wastewater, what we would just call residential wastewater, right? The township has all residential wastewater customers right now. There are no industrial customers currently in this township. So everybody, even if they're using water for light manufacturing processes, it's still deemed residential wastewater. It's not full of those things. They're not pre-treating it on site like a large manufacturing facility might be. So that may push us down that road where there will be industrial pretreatment, industrial waste pretreatment requirements that have to occur on site. That's what we're working through right now.
Yeah, and that also lends to the fact that this really should be an industrial, in my opinion. But,
Sure seems to push it that way.
Yeah. So, okay. I think, would you like to speak on this, or?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
One of the major components of data center regulations is noise. There's no doubt about that. And the impact of the potential noise and vibrations on surrounding land uses. And as a result of that, the Township Board retained an expert in the field of acoustics, noise, and vibration control. Mr. Darren Brown was recommended by a number of engineering firms, and he is board certified in the field of noise control engineering. And he will help the Planning Commission identify some noise issues that are specifically associated with data centers and guide the Planning Commission in developing specific and technical and supportable criteria that they can incorporate into the zoning ordinance. Mr. Brown is here tonight, and he's here to introduce himself and give the Planning Commission some idea of what they can expect and what the criteria might look like, and answer some initial questions from the Planning Commission members. Mr. Brown.
Good evening. As mentioned, I am Darren Brown. I am the owner of K&S Engineers. I am a professional engineer licensed here in the state of Michigan. I am board certified by the Institute of Noise Control Engineering. I've been working in this field now for 26 plus years. A lot of my work has revolved around community noise issues, whether it's helping clients get approval from bodies such as yourself, or it's helping municipalities strengthen their ordinances, or even reviewing applications for other uses. This year is a big year for data centers, and I'm getting involved in quite a few of them. Over the last several years, I've been getting involved with reviewing and doing noise studies for renewable energy products or facilities, whether it's wind turbines, solar, or battery energy storage systems. And what we're seeing is not too different than we've seen in years past, other than some of the capacities are bigger. Some of the industrial projects I've worked on, like paper plants in the Kalamazoo area or down in Waco, Texas, have similar scales, where they have their own power production facilities or wastewater treatment plants. We look at it based on components. What do these facilities bring to the community? What do we need to be aware of? With that in mind, we understand what it takes to prepare a community to make sure that these issues don't become issues. These developments need to comply with ordinances, and we're looking to structure the ordinance in such a way that it protects the residents. And as mentioned, be defensible, be robust. So with that, if you have any particular questions, I'm happy to answer those.
I just actually I know a lot of the DBA, DBC weighting. Do you think we need to, is there a way to go farther with go into another level for that lower frequency that penetrates the walls of people's homes?
So most of what people hear inside their homes is audible sound. And the audible sound is covered in the range of 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. The same audible range is covered by both A weighting and C weighting. That being said, there is some concern of infrasound, which is generally sound below 20 hertz. And there's not a lot of structure here within the United States for one measuring. I mean, we can readily measure it, but kind of setting criteria for what's expected on people's impact from that. I've been exploring various avenues that that are in place in Europe. There's something called the low-frequency noise situation, where they consider essentially frequencies between 10 hertz and 125 hertz. And there's some criteria, there's established limits where it's recognized, where people hear it and begin to be bothered by it. So these are considerations that we're going to look at. If we implemented something like this, to the best of my knowledge, it would be something that is revolutionary here in the United States. And it's not to say that it can't be done, but it has to be taken on cautiously.
Yeah, that's the hard part about this whole thing, is this is a new technology, new ways of doing things, and all of a sudden the country is exploding with these things that are coming up everywhere, and it's just like we've found over history, when we jump into doing things, there's the health risks and things that come out of things that we don't know about for 20, 40, 50 years. And then all of a sudden we're having class action suits against everybody who, frankly, is probably no longer in our area, because this 1 million square foot building now can be stored on a computer this size instead of 1 million square feet, just like the computers back in the 70s now are on a phone. It's interesting. I just the noise thing, the infra noise, that's one of the concerns I have, because the amount of cooling fans these things have, and obviously I'm sure you've worked on windmills then, if you've been in that kind of industry, that fluctuating and
Sure.
vibration.
And just to kind of reassure you all here, including the audience, low-frequency noise is something that we live with every day, okay? And the question is, at what threshold does it become a problem?
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, there are some recognized thresholds where it does become a problem. There's concern being pushed forward by organizations where they're looking at low-frequency noises that are well below this threshold. And the concern I have is that, yes, we want to be diligent in how we approach this. We want to, as a professional engineer, I kind of took an extra step as a young engineer. And it's called the Order of the Ring. And there was a bridge that was, it's catastrophic. It failed, took people's lives. And they took the metal from that bridge, and they reformed it into rings that engineers wear. They ran out of metal for that. So now most rings are just stainless steel these days. But when you take the Order of the Engineer, it's essentially a Hippocratic oath to the public that says, we will do no harm. So I approach it in that way. We have to be diligent about protecting the people around us, the residents of the communities that we serve. And we also have to work with the knowledge we have. So it's a fine line to balance, and I don't want people to get overly stressed out about low frequency, because this is not wind farms. Wind farms, prominently produce low frequency noise. We are talking fans, we're talking generators, we're talking equipment that is commonly found in other applications of industry, in commercial applications. It's just it's coming together in a large scale. You know, in a site where you might have, 10 or 20 chillers, you have hundreds of chillers. So, and I understand that concern. But we also need to keep within the realm of the science that we have.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any questions from the commissioners?
How many hours do we have?
Sir, we'll open to the public in a minute.
Will he be available?
No.
No,
No.
he's not doing Q&A.
One of the things that our legal counsel mentioned, that you mentioned also, is defensibility of these ordinances. Obviously, you've been called in to work on ordinances specifically with that in mind. What are some of the areas you're looking at for defensibility? What are some of the scenarios where you're seeing where people, well-intentioned people, may have overstepped in what they were trying to control, and the areas that we need to concentrate on to push it up to that defensible line but not step over?
A lot of defensibility deals with making sure you're defining what you're intending. For example, I'm working with a community where the ordinance is a good ordinance, but it could have gone further. So I'm working with that township to review an application for a data center. And in reviewing that, I have specific requirements as an engineer, a noise control engineer, that I expect from other engineers. And when we don't see that when we're reviewing other people's work, other engineers' work, I take them to task. I say, why aren't you doing these things that are maybe not required by the ordinance, but they're standards in the industry? And they fight back because they don't want to do them. So when I say defining, what you want in the ordinance, it's making sure that you don't leave holes where the contractors, the developers can walk through. Defensibility, if it's part of a standard, if it's part of normal engineering practice, and it's supported with citations, that's where we build the ordinances. We don't make up new context of problems that we're, think we see. We work with problems that we know. So if it's taken to court, there are examples of past cases or past situations that would support the position that the ordinance holds.
I want to just add to what Darren said, because he gave us a number of recommendations that were really helpful. One thing you'll see in the 50% ordinance draft is that we are proposing enhancing noise standards across the board. So we put this intentionally in your performance standards, which apply to all new development, not just to large-scale industrial and data centers, recognizing, right, that other uses could come about that have the similar noise impacts. So we want to be able to regulate them holistically. Yep. Another thing that Darren recommended just to bolster the enforceability of and defensibility of the ordinance that we already have is to add a strong intent statement. So we've crafted some language, and Darren will provide a lot of feedback on that, I'm sure, and be able to help us strengthen that. But those components are really important when it comes to defending the fact that we are requiring these things. We want to make sure that we're not singling out a certain use when really any use, any application that comes in has noise impacts. So we want to make sure that we regulate those, that we establish really strong standards for our community that are defensible for any proposal that you see.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got about 1,000 questions about specifics that I don't think we need to go into, because I know you're working with our experts on detailed stuff.
Sure.
So I wanted to get some 50,000-foot overview. Is there anything, and I've dealt with lots of different vendors and experts and contractors, is there anything that most people miss in this, that where you say, this is where you need to look, not over here. This is what everybody sees, but this is the one that everybody misses, and that's the important one.
I don't know that I can point to any one thing. I kind of alluded that, another ordinance, still a good ordinance, they didn't have criteria for reviewing applications. They weren't prepared for it. So I think the fact that you guys are getting ahead of this, we're going to define what the applicant needs to go through, the criteria, the standards that they need to follow. And that's very good. Coming at it, hiring a consultant who has had experience with these situations and various applications. There's simple things like providing penalties for tonal noise, penalties for impulsive noise, requiring a thorough sound study for your application, particularly if there's a high concern for noise or a high potential for noise impact. I think that's very fair. If somebody's going to, invest billions of dollars into a data center, they can complete a $50,000 noise study. I guess another point is that when you require somebody to conduct a noise study, make sure they are using a qualified professional. I would make it a recommendation that, they're INSBORD certified, but if they're not INSBORD certified, they at least demonstrate that they have the credentials to do the work. I'm working on a project right now where the person who submitted the noise study, they don't really have the credentials to do that kind of work, and it's kind of disappointing. It's not to say they wouldn't have the capability if they, got the education and, the experience, but at this moment, this isn't, it's not the type of work they should be doing.
Kayla, if I can ask you, I thought I saw somewhere in your letter about a noise study. Did you want to expand on that a little bit, or are we doing one internally, or is that something that we're recommending be done before by an outside third party?
Yeah, so Darren had
Did you want me to?
Yeah,
on that? Okay.
go ahead.
So, anytime, we're building a noise ordinance or rebuilding it to be more thorough, one of the concerns is that the noise ordinance will have noise limits to it. And the question is, well, what sound levels exist in the community currently? Okay, and there's things certainly we can set up in the ordinance that, if we make levels that are too stringent and the ambient sound levels are higher, the ordinance is designed to be self-adjusting. But at the same time, we don't want to get into that position on a regular basis. It makes extra work for the township to evaluate that, and, there's got to be proof that, the limits of the noise ordinance can be adjusted. So it becomes problematic in the long run. So taking sound measurements within the community to understand, okay, what exists currently is important to understand, okay, where can we set the noise limits, with a reasonable level that, people will comply with naturally. So yeah, doing a noise study within the community is an important step that we're looking to undertake.
That would be something like Van Dyke Expressway as a natural noise. There's been noise ordinance complaints we've had where I work, where the noise ordinance specifies, okay, we have a 60 decibels at the property line, but if you're on Groesbeck Highway and the highway is producing 90, then 90 is the number. You're used to 90, that's where you're at. Is that what you're talking about, something like that?
Something to that degree.
Maybe not 90, but.
Right, but that's an issue, for example, that's complicated. You might say, well, you have traffic, you have noise, but okay, well, what hour of the day?
Correct.
Is that daytime, nighttime, 7 a.m., 5 p.m.? What hours are we talking about? So we have to be careful with that because while we do want to be considerate of the environment that exists currently, we don't want to set it up in such a way that, you know, if we define daytime hours as 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., you know, after 8 p.m. when the traffic's dwindling, you know, can they still produce that 90 dB level? Might not be the best situation. So it's something we need to think about and be careful of.
Are you guys, you have any questions? No?
I think I'm good. Looking forward to seeing some
Yeah,
of the
I'm-
results.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point about the holes, you know, and I do plan review as a building official, and a lot of times I get architects or engineers that submit plans to me, and it just baffles me, because we're working out of the same code book, but yet you still can't give a full, you know, even though it might not be, you might meet the code, but some of the things they do, it just baffles me that they couldn't have gone that extra step to be a professional. So yeah, I'd like to get those holes closed. Unfortunately, you have to close those holes, because if they can design to a specific standard which you've given them, and you've got a hole in it, and they pick that hole apart, we don't have a leg to stand on. So we need to make that clear, I believe.
Yep.
I like the direction you're going on.
Good. That is the goal.
Yeah, thank you for coming out tonight.
Sure.
I appreciate it. Do you have any other questions for him? Anybody else? Great.
I'm all set.
Where do we go from here?
Good.
Obviously, lighting. Is there anything that would, I mean, obviously the light standards, dark sky, this and that, is there anything they can throw at us being essential, where they need to provide security at a different level on their complex, especially in light of the fact that they're bombing these things overseas right now? You know, is there, I mean, could they cry, we need more lights because we can't take a chance, we need to be able to monitor? Is that something they could attest to that would override anything we throw at them with regard to dark sky ordinance? I don't know how to phrase that.
Yeah.
I thought about something that would be concerning, because it's a security breach or security issue. Is that something they could argue?
Yeah, I mean, yes, right, they may come in and make that argument, but your standards are your standards, so they have to follow them unless you approve a variance or approve a waiver if they come in through a PUD application, for example. I would say, though, like, that's a common misconception that security lighting can't meet dark sky compliance standards. That's not true. They even make wall packs now that are dark sky certified compliant, and that used to be the worst of any lighting fixture. So there are a number of different fixtures you can choose. You know, they could have as many lights as they need on a property, as long as they're not overriding that ambient light at the property line. And again, the lighting source can't be visible. So the actual bulb can't be visible from an adjoining property, which again means that your lighting has to be completely downward shielded. The IDA certified lighting requires a certain color temperature, which is kind of that soft yellow. So no white or blue lights. That's what that color temperature limits, is really the blue light exposure. So those things are really addressed through the certification of those fixtures themselves. You have probably the most stringent light ordinance that I've seen by just requiring that certification.
Okay. So we like it dark. I did have a question about the utilities. I'm assuming that with regards to power, that is going to be pretty much completely out of our control. That'll be external state and government entities. If they ask for X amount of electricity, they can go and make an agreement to get it. And our scope ends at the design of the building with regards to how the equipment is installed. Is that correct, or?
Correct. So we can't, if electricity is available, and again, I know that's a point of contention, it's not necessarily, I can't weigh in on that. There's a public commission that determines whether those agreements are appropriate. They make that agreement with the provider themselves. What we're doing on our end, which again is as far as we can go as a local government, is we're actually recommending that you require full hookup to electricity before any facility operates. And that just protects you so that they're not running on generators for a year while DTE or whoever the provider is builds up infrastructure to service the facility. Again, that's kind of the extent that we can take it, but we want to make sure that that's in place to protect you from that
The building
reality.
official can govern that as well. If you go into section 108 of the building code, it authorizes you to, I can't remember the exact number, 10827? It might be, don't quote me on the numbers exactly, but I believe that's the one where it doesn't say shall allow them to open on temporary power. It does not say shall.
It does
So
not.
it gives him discretion to make that decision on whether or not you can open on temporary power.
And our goal would be
Temporary
to,
is the key.
Yeah.
Temporary is the key.
Well, temporary power is generators.
But temporary is the key word.
and our goal would be to write a standard that, for these specific uses, any large-scale industrial data
Could be
center
any
power
use.
has
I
to
mean, I
be,
just
yeah.
had a Popeyes that tried to open on temporary power.
Yeah,
that we
that's
did
true.
not allow.
So it goes right in the performance standards.
But, yeah, at this point, you do not have to, it's going to be at the discretion of that building official unless he's pushed by his board. So, at that point, that said, with regard to the generator powers, the noise, obviously the noise that accumulates, obviously there's timeframes that we would want to, and I know you had talked a little bit about that. Do you want to go into that at all as to when they, because I know they have to cycle. That's the big thing. It isn't just when the power's out. They have to cycle usually weekly. So you're talking hundreds of generators cycling at given times, coordinating that so it's not at night would be key.
Okay.
I don't know how we address that other than timeframes.
So right now, we have a placeholder. We're proposing a new section, 4.49, which would be in your specific use standards. This would be for small-scale and large-scale data centers, particularly in addressing the generator testing. So we left this as a placeholder so that we can have some more discussion of this with your noise expert and do some additional research. But our goal would be to regulate the frequency of testing and the hours within which testing can occur. So yes, generally we'd want to at least keep it to business hours, but you may even limit it further depending on what some of those ambient noise levels are that Darren's team identifies.
And I think I know the answer to this question, but with regard to generators and the fumes and things that come out of them, obviously California is the gold standard when it comes to that stuff, but I don't believe we can hold them to a California standard of that, can we?
No, because we're not in California.
That's what I figured the answer would be, so
Yeah.
it's, I'm just throwing it out there. What else do we have? You guys have anything further to comment on?
So I'll just add, you probably already saw this, and I think we talk about it in our memo. But the majority of our recommendations to address some of these hot ticket items is really going into performance standards rather than the specific use standards, and that's intentional. Just knowing that technology is changing so fast, we don't want to be limited by how we define, this specific use. These things that we're setting standards for noise, for vibration, for what else is in here, for water usage and effluents as well. We want to make sure that those items are addressed for all developments within the township. So that's why that section of your ordinance is really important. It's always existed there, but it's kind of bare bones right now. So we're really working to bolster that section and make sure that we have the tools to thoroughly review anything that comes in and comes before you.
In the requirements with regard to electrical, obviously, the only thing we can really regulate is that they have power by the time they are open. What about for during construction? Obviously, when you get into these hyperscale developments, they take a very long time to build. Their push from a construction standpoint is going to be to run 24/7. We have noise ordinances that cut that off at given times. Are there provisions in our ordinance right now that would put us in a bind with regard to having to allow them because we've allowed other people to do? Because if they can't operate 24/7, they can't get inspections 24/7. Doesn't mean they can't contact the building official or the municipality to try to pay overtime, things like that, to get inspectors on site after hours, things of that nature, because that's going to prevent them that would prevent any development at a slower rate, which is not always what you want to do as a development-friendly community. So,
Yeah, the only exceptions we've had are for township projects or emergency
Okay.
situations that occurred. Those are the only exceptions. There hasn't been an exception granted for development
Okay.
or any sort of development. It's just under an emergency or, a utility, township project, but those
yeah,
are.
state roads, something like that, where you're working with a government agency to
Yeah,
work.
but not for a developer or independent project.
Does our ordinance with regard to that only reflect when it abuts residential? Okay.
No.
Okay. I know of other ones that do. I just wanted to make sure ours did not. Okay. Some of those exemptions, they in other communities, they tie it to if they do not abut residential. Okay. Further discussion?
Mike?
Yes, sir.
I know you said in your letter, you said you reached out to Great Lakes Water Authority about the contaminants and all that.
Yep.
You expect to hear back from them?
We should have an answer and some guidelines of whether or not we want to specify that or if we're going to stay defaulted back to theirs. Those provisions, like I said, in our existing land development utility ordinance need a little updating anyway because they refer to agencies that have changed names, like the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality, which it hasn't been for some time. So we're going to probably make those changes anyway. What I think we got to look at is whether or not they have something in the works that we can adopt in so it's consistent, or if it's something that we're going to go alone and add and specify on our end.
I was going to say, are we allowed to go more stringent than what Great Lakes Water Authority does?
Yeah, because we can regulate what goes into the pipe that you
Into
guys are
our-
owning and operating, yeah, and into our plan and into theirs.
Into
You
our
can be
plan.
more stringent, right?
Okay.
You're running those sewers, yep.
Perfect.
Yeah, I tried to take a little read through 143, and that's fun.
I can point you to the exact sections if you're interested.
Yeah, I did some word searching and skimmed, and then quickly.
There's a lot of information.
Yeah.
I mean, that, like we said, that one, that was intentionally adopted at really the request of DWSD at the time, because as a direct customer, it's not direct, it goes through Macomb County first, but they've also adopted the same standards. Everyone's trying to, match what the ultimate treatment is going to be. That's the intent.
Yeah. Yeah, my concern is amounts coming back out of the system, mostly into our sewer system and our treatment system. And I know we've got capacity issues that are going to be, coming for the next several decades. So I think that's an interesting point for us to look at very closely with regards to how much capacity we can spare for industrial use across the township.
And I think, to Kayla's point earlier, we're trying to create a standard that doesn't just focus on one particular property, one particular use, and one particular part of town.
Yeah, we have.
So this has to apply everywhere. You may be discharging to the township's wastewater treatment plant. You may be going into a public sewer that eventually goes all the way down to the Detroit River. But we want to hold it to the same standard so it's consistent. That's easily enforceable, as my friend next to me has always told me. More easily enforceable.
More easily.
Okay. All right,
Good on
you
discussion.
guys good? Discussion? Yeah. You guys comfortable? We can open it up for public comment. Please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please.
Ken Goyke, 22440 32 Mile Road, Ray. I like the direction that the board is going into. You're really doing a lot of due diligence, and there's a lot of things more. I had a lot of questions I wanted to talk to see if you could build into your sound ordinances on the type of construction that they do with absorption on the sound and stuff in that building. Maybe that's possible, another thing to put into your code. Also into your code onto the water discharge. There's already numbers already set in place. Basically, employees are about 3.5 gallons of water a day per person. So there might be limits that you can put into your own sewer system for that amount of water only to be discharged into the sanitary sewer. Have to build a capacity of a tank built into your ordinances that any of the cooling water, let's say if it's got glyco in it, or something, like a radiator or something, just to look at it in that fashion, that it's a cooling operation, and other than what's going up in evaporation, that they can continue to, just add their polymers and stuff to take them, if they're, whatever type of stuff is into it, and keep recycling the same water over again with minimal lossage of that water. So if that can be built in, if Mike can, as an engineer, look into them things. Also, with the generators, doing the same thing. Maybe in the ordinance, maybe you can push to the fact of using natural gas engines for their generating, which is, everybody knows, is a lot less emissions coming out of that. And then something else that you have to look into. So previously, I don't know if all of you know, but I was a state rep for this area. Now I'm your county commissioner. But I had a real big issue with Consumers Power in Ray Township at their pumping station. We also have a pumping station in Washington. Well, it's actually compressors. I think your ordinance has to address when equipment gets changed out, it has to be approved. Excuse me. Consumers Power changed their engines down there, and their existing stacks started vibrating, local houses, stuff off the basement walls and everything. So you get the federal government involved because the EPA is all involved with that. But by getting ahead of it, you don't have to work behind it. Darn. They ended up solving that issue by putting rings on the stacks, and it took the vibrations all out. But my whole point is being progressive, darn, I'm sorry, about all these issues, and to go forward with it. And one last thing, I made a recommendation that possibly requiring the board to have them set a bond. If the place is abandoned, they have to pay for it by maintaining a bond. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good evening. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. My name is John Tarlow. I live at Reed and Romeo Plank in Armada Township. I'm a degreed system security engineer certified in governance, risk, and compliance. I want to start by acknowledging the effort of the Commission and the consultants have already invested in developing the 50% draft ordinance. We are currently navigating a rapidly evolving and challenging landscape for high energy intensive developments. Recent national reporting, including data from Bloomberg, indicates a negative trend to the market. Currently, approximately half of all planned data center projects across the U.S. are facing delays or have been canceled entirely. These failures are driven by supply chain shortages and shifting market dynamics. Your primary goal is to protect the community with reasonable development. However, in an environment where project failure rates are high, additionally, you must ensure a framework that is resilient enough to handle the reality of abandonment. Given the high failure rates nationally, it's prudent to ensure framework specifically accounts for all risks brought on by the current landscape. While not inclusive to all risks, here's some of the financial threats. Bonds. Current draft utilities Current draft utilizes general performance bonds. Given the likelihood of product failure, I formally recommend you ensure there are sufficient and dedicated funds specifically earmarked for all scenarios. Enforcement. The 50% draft currently allows for flexibility in phasing. Adding clear, automatic mechanisms to pause construction if needed would provide stronger protections. Penalties. The draft currently lacks specific fine structures. Establishing clear, relevant penalties for deviation would help ensure compliance remains the most straightforward and cost-effective path for developers. Some recommendations. I strongly encourage leveraging the residents-provided ordinances to remediate these and other risks efficiently. It offers 13 bond-specific categories, sequential approval language, specific penalty structures. However, a word of caution. While I'm exceedingly confident the concepts in the resident ordinances are in alignment with higher level regulations, I also strongly encourage the Commission to have the Township's legal counsel conduct a thorough and full review and provide public comment. The Council, the Board, Commission, and the residents should expect nothing less, and costs will be a fraction of enabling a weak ordinance. In conclusion, volatility of the hide industry with its high rate of project failures requires a framework that is acceptable and strong. The current 50% draft is a good start. And with the addition of specific language from the proposed ordinance, you can ensure it's ready for the realities of the landscape. Thank you.
Thank you.
Say, maybe have them line up, so whoever wants to speak.
Oh, yeah, if anybody would like to line up along the side over there, just so we can kind of keep it moving. Good. Thank you.
Good evening, Supervisor Miller and members of the Planning Commission. I'm Danielle Barrett. I live on 28 Mile in Washington Township. I appreciate the care and effort that has clearly gone into the 50% draft, and I'm offering these comments in the spirit of collaboration. Hearing the comments from Ms. Malden and Mr. Kozak tonight, I'm confident we're on the same page. So as I read through my comments, don't take them as a criticism of the draft, just a support in the gap analysis that we performed. So my comments are about wastewater and chemical discharge. The current approach treats wastewater primarily as a routine utility matter. Obviously, we talked about some effluents. Our submitted proposal from the residents group treats it more of a chemical hazard requiring defined controls. That distinction matters because it determines whether the township has enforceable standards or must rely on self-monitoring by a private operator. The draft does heavily rely on Ordinance 143, which you mentioned, which is an older ordinance. Obviously, you're going to be doing updates, and we just want to be sure that the specific modern cooling tower chemicals are established in that spec, including the biocides, corrosion inhibitors, and heavy metals that they're using in data centers. Without specific limits on those chemicals, the township may lack clear basis to act if harmful discharges occur at levels that may damage the sewer infrastructure or harm groundwater. Our proposed ordinance fills that gap with explicit definitions and measurable limits of 0.5 parts per million of chlorine, 0.2 ppm of bromine, and Eagle-based limits for metals like zinc, copper, and molybdate, which I had to look up. It is an anti-corrosive, but it's also a catalyst to forming formaldehyde, so it's good to keep in mind. Second, the draft doesn't require regular testing, meaning impacts may only be discovered after a well test fails or other damage occurs. Our proposal includes quarterly testing, public reporting, and the ability for the township to retain an independent water quality expert funded by the applicant. Third, there's no dedicated financial protection for taxpayers in the event of contamination. Our proposal establishes chemical discharge bond held in escrow to ensure immediate resources for response if needed. Fourth, the current draft assumes downstream treatment facilities can manage these discharges. Again, we talked about that. Our ordinance does require on-site neutralization before discharge with monitoring reporting. And finally, the draft assumes closed-loop systems result in zero discharge. We know that's not true. In practice, all systems require blowdown, and our proposal regulates blowdown and prohibits hybrid systems. Given the technical complexity involved, we respectfully suggest that an independent environmental health and safety expert is hired to consult with the rest of the ordinance planning.
Okay.
My name is Abby Jacobson from Westview Orchard, 65075 Van Dyke. And I do want to commend all of you. I've sat in that seat, all the hard work and time that you've put into this ordinance on behalf of all of us. I just have some food for thought that I'd like to share. I'd like to go back to the Washington Township Master Plan on the executive summary under major themes of public input. It says preserving the township's natural environment and rural character to the extent possible is important to many residents who understand that the township is growing and that in a sense it is a current frontier for growth in the M53 corridor. Most input received called for balancing that growth with consideration for historical resources, terrain, habitat, and agriculture. Again, in the Washington Township Master Plan and the executive summary, on page 6, under goals and objectives of the master plan, under number 7, unique places, the township will recognize its unique areas and sites, including its historical, agricultural, natural, and principal commercial or mixed-use areas, and support their future development in accordance with each of their needs and characters. Specifically, data centers do create heat islands. And the University of Cambridge has found that the land surface temperatures, which is the heat of the ground, have been increased by an average of 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit and as much as 16 degrees Fahrenheit. The researchers also found that the temperature increases were felt up to 6.2 miles away from the facility. Now, these findings have not been reviewed yet. This is significant for agriculture. Trees and plants, they age with temperature. They don't age like humans and animals. We age with time. And specifically, every degree it's 42 degrees advances the growth of a tree or a plant. And what that actually means is that our trees would start budding earlier, which would make them more susceptible to frost. As we've experienced the last couple nights, we've had a little bit of damage, not much, but they would come out sooner and have a greater risk of being completely frosted out. And then there's the idea of drought as well during the season if we have those kind of heat temperatures. So in conclusion, data centers could have a negative effect on agriculture, at least in the immediate area. Thank you, and I do want to commend the audience as well. You have done your research, and you have come up here very respectfully, and I really admire that.
And we appreciate that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Corinne Graper. I live on Dorothy Trail in Washington. A few points I want to make. The scale of data centers should not be measured by building size. I know that's a challenge because that's typically how your ordinances are written. But they use way more energy and water than even a typical manufacturing facility. The University of Michigan professor Sarah Mills, Kayla, I know you referenced her in one of the articles she wrote. She actually did an hour-long webinar. I would suggest you all watch it. It's way more informative than the article even. Let me share some of the things she said in there. So Sarah Mills is a planning expert from the University of Michigan. In her webinar, she makes the point that in all of her research, she cannot find solid answers to many questions about the environmental and health impacts of data centers on communities. That tells you that we're in uncharted territory and we cannot work off of old assumptions and ordinances. I understand where Darren was going from a scientific standpoint, but that scares me a bit because to the point that Barry made, and we've seen this with tobacco companies, we've seen this with Teflon, the impacts are felt 10, 20 years later. Sometimes we realize, oops, these things had effects. This is a good reason to hire an environmental health and safety expert. I think we saw that Darren brought a wealth of information, things that you guys probably didn't know or were thinking of. And an environmental health and safety expert would do the same thing. You can find those people in one firm that can help you with soil impacts, water, air, all of that. I think it would be a great compliment to the great work you guys have done so far. Professor Mills also says that she has come to the conclusion that there is no correlation between building size and the amount of energy and water usage. So we should not approve smaller size data centers in IRT or commercial areas. They will use massive energy and water. They should only be zoned in industrial. And as technology improves, the compute power is going to increase. So you can have a smaller building, way more compute power and energy and water usage. So again, we've got to think 10, 20 years down the road in these ordinances as technology improves. So suggesting that a data center be permitted in any zone that's an accessory or allowing smaller data centers in commercial area just opens Pandora's box. We have seen data center developers exploit loopholes, and so we better be really, really sure that there's no way they could exploit anything, because we've seen them come in and try to classify themselves as banks or research facilities to try to get lower regulations. Professor Mills also advocates that data centers be placed in industrial. There's a great fact point to use in your analysis of where they should go. Lastly, I've spoken on this before, there are some multi-billion-dollar companies that do not take ordinances seriously unless there's a large enough fine and a penalty for not following through. So we need to make sure that the fines are large, the town has a plan to monitor them, and to report on them. To your point, Barry, on California, I'm not so sure that's not true, that you can't require them to report on emissions and climate risk. We need to look at the Michigan codes to see what that says, but I would imagine that they probably don't have reporting in there, and you probably could use some of those California regulations here. That's it.
Okay. Hi, I'm Izzy Greco, and I live at 28 in Mound. I'm a Romeo High School student, and as a high school student, I'm constantly surrounded by the growing use of AI in academic and professional settings, as well as the adaptation and implementation of generative AI in the classroom, which can be a very helpful tool when developed responsibly. As many of you are aware, there are many issues with AI power generation plants and data centers. As mentioned before, sound, water pollution, air pollution, all kinds of things. But a point that I wanted to bring up was the effects on the local ecosystem, not just what's being cleared out in that area, but also how the sound and light and water pollution all would add effects throughout our community in a broader spectrum. As mentioned before, a lot of data centers are not super upfront with their policies and will often pay around the fines they are given because they're such big corporations and not often as extremely as affected by those fines as a smaller corporation would be. So they can get around that. And then my last point is these data centers and this technology is a very new thing, and we don't know the long-term effects of any of it, really. We don't know 10, 20 years, as previously mentioned, down the line, how this could have negative effects in our community, and I think it's something that we should research into a little bit further. So to conclude, I think we should look into especially the environmental effects of data centers and keep an eye on that. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Rose Gould of Bruce Township. One of the concerns, all of these are definite concerns, the water. A data center, from what I understand, uses up to 50,000 houses of use a day. And I believe Washington Township has a an ordinance that you can only water from, 5 to 9 in the morning, and then again from 5 to 9 at night. So you can't water in between because of water usage. But the data center is going to use up to 50,000 homes worth of water in one day. And that just seems unacceptable to me. And then the cost, from what I'm reading online, I don't know if it's true or not, but energy cost goes up in the area and the surrounding areas because of all the new development that's needed. And I don't know about anybody else, but I think our energy costs, they just took a hike, I believe, again. We don't need any more hikes. I think we need to consider that as well. And that's it.
Hi, David Vinay, 71705 Hidden River Drive. Thank you for the work that you've done in assembling the information brought to us tonight. From the 1 to 50% document, I am a bit concerned about the sound ordinances in section 2.2. From my understanding, weighted sound levels generally do not include subsonics or infrasounds, typically categorized as less than 20 hertz. Just because you can't hear it doesn't mean it can't affect you. Ultraviolet light can burn you, even though you cannot see it. Similarly, and increasingly, data centers in other states are being found to produce higher levels of infrasounds, sometimes into the 90 decibel range. Infrasounds can travel long distances and are difficult to block. Exposure is increasingly being tied to negative health effects, such as nausea. Long-term exposure being tied to health or to heart conditions, such as heart disease and hypertension. For the health and wellness of citizens, I strongly urge sound ordinances to include infrasounds along with other restricted sound levels. Thank you.
I know we don't typically respond, but I do just want to add that Darren has made the same recommendation and is working with us on some language to that effect. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Everybody knows me as Tony the Barber. My real name is Kirill Petkov. I live in 27 Mile. Listen, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. The long story, we can talk about it. The talk has been continued for how many months? 5 months, let's say 6 months. And the answer after we draw the line, which is the bottom line, it's hard no. The short answer of that is also hard no. How about the whole conversation here is how can we protect ourselves from the data center? Data center is coming to town. But how do we protect ourselves from this monstrosity? Why is it monstrosity? Because our data center will consume more power energy, electrical energy, that Macomb County and Oakland County residential area combined. Somebody alluded to the water usage. It was in the hundreds of thousands of gallons. No. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not in the hundreds of thousands. It's in the millions of gallons. About the discharge of the water. Oh, we have to make sure that we regulate the monster. It's bigger than the government. It's bigger than our government, local government. They're dwarfing our government. It's bigger than the county government, the state government. Nobody of us, you guys are over looking of yourselves that you can control this. No, you cannot control this. Once they move in, it'll become even worse. They'll expand, and you're going to lose control on pretty much the entire political operation in this government. They're not going to stop with one thing. Within the same building, they're going to be able to fit more. Mr. Kopp from the previous generation of trustees, do you remember what he said? 200 acres of building, not in feet. He was mentioning acres. So thank you very much. Keep in mind, it's a, let's have no data center zone. And let's put it on the ballot.
Good evening, Board. Chris Judich at 31 Mile and Powell. You know, someone else already mentioned what I wanted to talk about, as well as the sound expert, about the, you know, infrared sound, so I'm glad that's being mentioned, and that's going to be part of the ordinances. You know, there's a lot to, you know, wrap up in there, but you guys are doing great work. We really appreciate it, you know, looking at our ordinances as well, because we spent a lot of hours. I mean, you know, we all have full-time jobs, multiple jobs. So we, you know, put a lot of time and effort into that, and we consulted with their own people, you know, as well. I would just like to say, don't be afraid to push the boundary. I know you guys are saying, you know, well, this might be Michigan standard, it's not California standard. You know, Europe does this. Why can't we be the gold standard of everything? I mean, why not push the boundary and say, hey, this is what we want. I understand, you know, we have to, you know, make it feasible for developers, but, you know, there's no reason why we can't push the boundaries and really make them step up to the plate, because that's what we expect for our community. So I would just say, don't be afraid to do that. You know, that's about it.
Thank you.
Hi, Anthony Carvello, Apache Lane, Washington Township. I just have two questions. It's in regards to your ordinances. You were talking about the different ordinances that are going on. Two questions that I had while you were discussing that was in regards to, has any considerations been made regarding on-site power generation? I know some of the data centers produce their own power. So are there any regulations regarding that? Or has any consideration been thought of for that, number one? The second question is in regards to security. We were talking about security and things like that, and that is drone. I heard that Oakland County just passed flock cameras, drone flock cameras, for their usage. And is there any ordinances regarding that? Will we allow drones to be used by this data center if it does come out to secure the facility? Well, I mean, when you're talking about a multi-billion-dollar facility, they may want to have drones to fly around and keep an eye on things. Do we have anything regarding that? So those are just the two items that I wanted to ask. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Drones are regulated by FAA, right?
Exclusively.
Yeah. Yeah, drones are regulated by FAA. We can't touch them. FAA, it's in the air. We don't touch it.
Hi, everyone. I've been told I eat the microphone, so I'm going to try and stay a little further back. Forgive me, I was actually going to amend with this gentleman to just talk about the flock cameras because I'm doing a bunch of research on that, but it looks like I don't have some of my facts with me, but we have about, I think, over 100 or something in Macomb County of those flock cameras. There's only a few, like I think less than 10 in like Washington Township. There's like 50 south of there in Shelby. So that's something I'd love to, for the community to also get in the know about and start fighting, because the government doesn't own the data or the cameras, and that's the only way that constitutionally they can get away with it, or perhaps not constitutionally, for them to not have to pay a whole lot, because imagine the cameras are possibly subsidized. They're intentionally made cheap so that, you know, big government, which is behind all this, can have a mass surveillance state. And of course, that uses AI, and AI is run on data centers. So forgive me, I thought I had my exact facts with me, but thank you. Forgive me, I wasn't paying attention to the gentleman that brought up the flock drones. They're a menace. I mean, this is like I've said before, we're living in a post 9/11 world. Ever since I was 5 years old, it's like worse and worse and worse. But the turnout I've seen for Washington Township, I would hope to see for my township. I'm just really happy, and thank you, Planning Commission, for hosting this. And I'd like to say, just I guess out of vanity, apologies for any emotions thrown your way from me specifically, because I imagine your job is, you guys have to, you guys have to, handle criticism. You have to do the dirty work. But as the gentleman before me said, is I don't push the boundaries. I really liked hearing that. I don't think anybody's ever said that. I hope that for the entire Macomb County, that we can push back on the federal government for what they're doing. Because I know that the local government is really the only thing we can most realistically act upon and fight for. So thank you for hosting this.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Baumgartner. I live at 28 and Mound in the old Carriage Hills. And when we came here and saw that subdivision, we fell in love. Our backyard is like a sanctuary. I want to hear my birds. I want to see the deer. I don't want them afraid to come anywhere near this place because of those huge tuna cans doing who knows what to us. I have read a lot about it, and many areas are saying, let's pause. Let's protect our area and our people. We don't know. I don't even know. Who is this company? Prologis? Who are they? I have no idea. We left and went south for a while, and that's when this all came up. And now we've got like 500 centers already going, and most of the ones that are in the process of being ready have been paused or no. Please, this is such a beautiful area. Don't let something that experts don't even know what it is going to do to us. I watched a special on 60 Minutes, who I am not a fan of, but they reported on season 58, episode 23, about what data centers are doing to people and all of the electrical currents going on, and they are making people sick. These are people that are high up in our government and have traveled around the world, and they have been made sick. A whole table of people are sitting there on a business trip, and they all get zapped with something through the air, and they've got them on TV, they've got them on camera, all shaking and going through this. Do we want that within 4 miles of us? I'm sorry, we bought up here when it was paradise. Mound Road was a dirt road, full of good bumps and lots of deer. But if you want the notes on what I saw, it was scary as blazes, and I don't think you want all of our lives on your shoulders.
Thank you.
Hi, Planning Commission. My name is Camille Allensworth. I live at 58172 Dulwich here in Washington Township. I'm just going to touch a lot of different things. Okay, first, you mentioned hiring a battery expert. Is that battery expert also, and I know you can't answer, but to think about, an expert in all forms of energy? Since we're already seeing on-site energy generation for these data centers, are you preparing for not just the storage, but the generation that goes into those batteries, nuclear, natural gas, solar? These are all things that they're contemplating and using in other places. Speaking about the sound levels, doing a noise study of the current levels, I just want to bring that up, also thinking about environmental issues. When we look at Data Center Alley and Cancer Alley in Louisiana, it wasn't just one development that led to this issue. It's the compounding effects of multiple developments. And so, yeah, maybe you do a noise study now, and you consider what can they add to that. But, we have to have a limit to, it's not just the one development, but you all control how much of those developments layer on top of each other to create the impact that we actually feel. So while they may be in compliance, maybe just thinking more broadly as what can we do to make sure that one that is in compliance and one that is in compliance don't create, a problem that is not acceptable for us. The penalties, I have serious issues with the penalties because these are very high earning companies. And in Memphis right now, where I'm from, people are being actively damaged, their whole lives are upended right now by this, and they're just paying the fines every day, and nothing's changing. So I think these penalties should be extremely high, and if you can do anything to proactively match those by doing measurements yourself. That the chemicals that this company mentioned in other places were carboxylates, phosphonates, and azoles, and if those are being considered in the wastewater treatment. And when the roads are damaged during construction, who pays for the repair of those? Because we're seeing that in other places in Michigan right now, and in other places in the US, that the roads are being damaged. We say it's not going to have a lot of traffic except during construction, then what? Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Chair Miller. Oh, sorry.
Does it start by itself?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You started.
You know that. My name is Sierra Garcia. I live in Lenox Township. First off, I wanted to just share with everyone that Lenox is going through the same process. We don't have a proposal presented to us. That's what the township board members have told us. Though residents have stated there's entities coming and giving offers to land. Some people have stated at meetings that there's been purchases. But the town hall meeting next week for Lenox is Wednesday, April 15th from 5 to 8, if anyone would like to join there. But also just wanted to bring to light something more new, that there's a 3-year moratorium in works for the entire state of Maine for the moratorium, just to give more time to see what these data centers are really doing and what the aftermath effects are and more long-term effects are. So that's just something I think we should keep at the forefront of our minds. As well as I just recently learned Senate candidate Genevieve Peters Scott up in Huron County, she helped and spoke with 5 other citizens in that county, and they successfully placed a 3-year moratorium there. So things like this are possible. We definitely need to get our state representatives' attention and have them seeing why are there tax benefits to these data centers. What's going on? We need to get to the state level. I think The other gentleman said that this is bigger than us, this is a federal thing. Something's going on. You know, we don't even really know the uses for these data centers. If it is, you know, data tracking, military use, you know, these data centers can be targets, that's definitely a concern. But I found this quote. Robert Redford was an EMA Awards honoree in 1989. I'm not exactly positive if that's when he stated this. I would imagine so. It says, I think the environment should be put in the category of our national security. Defense of our resources is just as important as defense abroad. Otherwise, what is there to defend? And it sounds like a lot of us have that in mind, and I hope that we can continue on ahead and support other communities and the county and the state.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mike Gould. I live in Bruce Township. I want to just piggyback off something one of the other speakers had mentioned. Prologis, the company that is funding this project, is a $129 billion net worth company. So when we talk about fines and penalties, if those fines and penalties aren't significant, I mean, a $50,000 fine to them, that's like us taking a nickel out of our pocket. The fines have got to be significant if that is going to be like some sort of controlling measure to try or controlling criteria to keep this under control. And I don't know if the township is under certain rules to keep fines. There must be like a reasonable limit or code, I would think. But I would certainly push to have that limit as high as possible, because like I said, even a $500,000 fine for something, that's not going to bother them. It's not even going to get their attention. It doesn't move the needle. So those kind of things have got to be considered when we talk about fines and penalties, as far as what the limits are going to be on those and how impactful that those are going to be on keeping them at least under our control somewhat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Carlos Pisano. I live here in Dulwich in Washington Township. Just had a few observations while being here in the meeting. One of them was when you guys approved one of them, I think you guys approved both of the motions or the recommendations. One comment stood out to me that when reading the motion, it was mentioned that the area had the sufficient or the appropriate utilities and all of that. But at the same time, members of the community come and they express their concerns about the utilities when someone comes for a rezoning application. They're concerned that what we're doing right now, right? Like electricity might be an issue, water might be an issue, sewer might be an issue. And we hear the feedback from the commission that it is strictly a rezoning application. It has nothing to do with those topics. So it's a little bit of confusion for me. I understand that part of the application for rezoning that has to be included, but somehow cannot be discussed or brought forward by the community. That's my feeling. So which is that something that I got. It's a confusion, and maybe that can be addressed later. Also, Chris mentioned about the environmental standards of California, how we cannot apply them here, but I mean, we can create our own, and he said it right perfectly. We should be or strive to be the gold standard, you know? California later should say we should use Washington Township standard. Another point is the sound expert, he said that developers should hire professionals to develop or perform the studies, and he has experienced that they don't have, or they don't bring the professionals that are not certified, or he doesn't believe that those people have the certifications, they might be capable, but they don't have the certifications to perform those studies. Is there any way that we can choose the experts and have them pay? That we define, that is done in the automotive industry, OEMs, they define and say you can only use these labs because they trust them. So can we do that? And I'm a supplier and we have to do that and we have to pay that. Doesn't matter. We don't have another way. Regarding penalties, they've said it, they have infinite funds. Money's not an issue for them. That's not going to hurt them. So if they don't comply, can they hold operations? Can we shut it down? You know? That will really hurt them. So, that was it? Okay. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Hello, I am Lauren Sadich. I am Armada Township, but Romeo Schools. And I'm surprised that we haven't touched on that. And so I just wanted to make a comment that while Washington Township, the furthest away schools in Washington Township are Washington Township, and I understand the distinction between the two when it comes to Romeo schools and the closest schools being in Romeo and their ordinances. When we're talking about the sound and the sound traveling, is there anything that could be put in place with the sound expert as far as an ordinance within a certain distance from the school? I just want to throw that out there. And then also too, in the ordinances and the pre-treating the water, all of the rain that came down on Saturday morning, I sat there on 32 Mile watching a manhole just bubble over with a municipal truck blocking the street in front of it flooding. Rains like this are going to continue to happen, and I think that that needs to be stated too, because I don't know where that liability would fall then. But if it isn't pre-treated and it is going into Washington Townships or whoever's sewers it is there already, it cannot handle the amount of rain that we're already getting, let alone whatever is going to be pumped into it on top of that. And so if it is contaminated, we're going to have a problem. So that's it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody's comments tonight. Always a pleasure dealing with you guys. You guys are very respectful. You guys have great input. I appreciate all the research you guys have done. I know we talked about fines a little bit. One quick question. Can we look into what does like the EPA do against oil companies who don't do right? I mean, are there fines that oil companies pay, or how do they address companies like that? Because obviously they have unlimited funds as well. I wonder if there's anything we can go in a direction.
Well, the fines that the EPA can assess are very different than the fines
Okay.
Washington Township can assess.
Agreed.
And you're looking at a violation of the zoning ordinance.
Right.
And you're limited to,
$500 fines.
if it's a misdemeanor, you're
If
limited
it's
to.
a misdemeanor.
Right.
Right. That's what I thought. And again, whether it's 500, 5,000, 500,000, these billion-dollar corporations are just rolling in the money, and that's not going to affect them in any capacity.
Hey, Barry, I can answer your question real quick. The BP, when they spilled the oil, their fine was $71 million.
Yes. But again, it's a federal level. I know, it's a federal thing. Yeah, I agree. I just wondered how that goes. A lot of great points. The heat islands are something that I had in my notes as well, things to consider. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight, and we'll move. We have what the motion on this would be.
Well, the one thing I wanted to bring up was as of right now, we have not received any new applications for the May meeting. So I just didn't want you to put it like date specific, because in case we don't have a meeting in May, then this would fall on the June meeting.
Okay.
So the next available, planning commission agenda.
Well, we have meetings. We have meetings all summer. Don't worry. I lost my paper. I'm sorry, sir.
No, but
Just a quick
Let you
question.
be the
That lady
last
might have
one.
made a good point. She said something about schools being close to buildings because of noise. Can we put up a building of some type for 150, 200,000? It'd save us in the long run and keep them from building? Maybe she's got a good point. Maybe we should look into how far that has to be from a school.
Well, that's what we're establishing now. is
Great.
what
That's-
we would be
just wanted to
looking
throw it
at,
in. She
How far
might-
that would be. I mean, there's been, even the town, the residents had put theirs out and they said 1,500 and there's many sites that would fall outside that 1,500. So it's all stuff we will look into and then we can't be site specific. We have to be standard across the board. So obviously, there's multiple industrial parcels that are probably close to a school somewhere along Van Dyke. There's also ones across the freeway that are well over the 1,500 feet.
Well, what if we even have to buy a property and put up some kind of building,
Well, if you
daycare or
want to buy
something?
some property, go for it, man.
Yeah, but if
you're competing with billionaires.
150,000, they're going to sue us for 100 million, we'd save a lot of money if we didn't have to.
We have to give people property to build on. We have to give them a chance to build. Part of a planning process is that you can't exempt people from being here. That's what we're trying to do, and not trying to exempt them, but trying to give a location that would work and give standards that they have to comply with so that we can do the right thing for our community.
Okay, then do it.
We're trying. Trying.
50% have found a way to do it.
Well, 50% is a start, and we move forward from there. I appreciate all the efforts of our staff, the community for getting us a lot of information, and I appreciate all the members here tonight for your comments and input. You want to make a motion?
What do we need?
We got to make a motion to, I lost my motion sheet.
Not there. What do we need the motion?
It should be, just table it to the next available planning
I
commission
had
meeting.
those.
Okay, motion to table till the next planning commission meeting?
No, I'm going to make a motion to authorize the planner and attorney continue working with, I'm sorry, excuse me. I'd like to make a motion to authorize planner and attorney to continue working with township engineer and new noise consultant and any additional consultants that the township moves forward to hire to assist with progressing the ordinance and placing it on hopefully the May
next
14th, but
available.
the next available planning commission meeting would be more appropriate. So I'll do that.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, moves on to, and that takes us to item 9, project update. Mike Kozak.
Thank you. As the weather has continued to warm, you're going to see a lot more activity happening, a lot of, I'll just rip through a couple of the commercial sites. RAC Washington, which is the old Rite Aid here at the corner, moving along with interior build out there, and they have some exterior work coming soon, parking lot work and utilities. Newbury South, moving along with utilities just north of there on the west side of Van Dyke, just south of us. Washington Place at West Road and Van Dyke looking pretty spiffy lately. Tenant build-outs and new commercial tenants coming there soon. Van Dyke 27 Properties, which is on the west side of the road, south of the cement plant. Still working on that building, and they should be paving that parking lot soon. All the utility work that was done last year there. As you go all the way up Van Dyke, all kinds of stuff there at 30 Mile. VNR Retail, the Romeo Medical Center, Leo's Coney Island, that whole complex, all that's progressing along, and the paving work will be starting and resuming on the VNR site very shortly. Residential build-out continues at Viridian, Cantor Farms, and other single-family developments. Township fire stations well under construction at 30 Mile and Powell. And as you drive north, Powell Road paving has started to resume with grading work. That'll take paved road all the way up to 32 Mile Road. And at Gilcher Park, the pavilion is up and the concrete base slab poured for that, so that'll be operational here soon. DPW worked to extend water main there, so there's a hydrant there now for fire protection. Eventually bathrooms coming soon to that same area. And we are diligently working on engineering reviews for Forest Ponds, Washington Parkway, and the Romeo District Library. Lots of stuff happening.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you, Mike. Township Board update.
Township Board update. We approved the budget, which is good. The state of the township is good financially. We also approved the Planning Commission's annual report.
Time to go home.
You guys are, motion to adjourn. We think you guys are doing a great job. Planning Commission's annual report, a lot of good stuff going on. So we appreciate the work that everybody does from the board to you guys. We also, if you didn't know, we approved retaining an expert for ordinance review. So you might have seen him earlier. Kayla, if I can tap you on the shoulder, we talk a little bit about Hawks and the MDNR grant.
Yeah, sure.
I appreciate that. You've been bringing that one along.
I have. So we're in a pause right now. April 1st was the deadline for submission for the grant application. We met that. All of our materials have been submitted to the portal, and we will diligently await our review from MDNR. Hopefully we get good news from them. It will take quite a while before we know whether we're funded or not.
I think you said early next year, maybe?
Yeah, hopefully.
So, yeah. Yay, grants.
We will be out at this site a couple times in the coming weeks, once with Athena Research Consultants, who were approved by the township to do the Section 106 review. That's our required State Historic Preservation Office review for cultural and historic resources, so they'll do some survey work out there, both above ground and below ground. So that'll be interesting to see kind of what cultural and historical items they find in any research that they pull up. We'll be out another time with MDNR themselves, since they've reviewed our application and, feel like they can move forward with processing it. They'll actually come out to the site with us. There's some funky things with our boundary for the purposes of that grant application. As you saw if you were at those meetings, we were trying to exclude some of the barn buildings so that they can be used in the future for museum or classroom space, which doesn't quite fit within that MDNR definition of public space, which is probably way more explanation than you wanted, John, but it'll make for some interesting spring and summer work.
The more information, the better. Thank you, I appreciate it. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that the board at its last meeting passed a resolution against a set of House bills going through the Michigan House right now. House Bills 5529 through 32 and 5581 through 85. You saw us up here earlier and the work we're doing with local zoning and trying to figure out what fits in certain areas. If these bills pass, all of that gets stripped away from local communities. All of the people that live in the communities lose control. And it changes drastically the way that townships and cities are going to be doing zoning. Just a couple of examples. It makes 1,500 square foot lots the law. Now, we're arguing over 10,000 or 15,000 or 20,000 square foot. We're talking about 1,500 square foot lots. Minimum house size 500. It makes duplexes available for any single family lot by right. Anybody could build accessory dwelling units by right. It basically eliminates single-family zoning districts and mobile homes. It is very much stripping away the authority of the local governments and concentrating it with the state. So if you want something to talk to your local representative about, call them up, send them an email, oppose those bills. We did it. I know Barry, Clinton Township.
I reached out,
they sent a resolution.
Josh Shriver reached out to me the other day after our conversations at the last public meeting. I forwarded him the bills to oppose, and he's going to pass them along to his friends. So hopefully he's got enough friends.
So appreciate it if you'd look into that and let the state know how you feel about it. That's all I have, Barry. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Commission discussion. I have one thing, and it's always self-serving on my behalf.
Is it about
and
mining?
I'll drag Corinne on this because she lives on my street.
Is it 31 miles?
Oh, no, they've been great. They haven't been there in a long time, but the damage is done. back before they illegally started using 31 Mile, there was a pothole at the intersection of 31 and Mound, and we always just tried to avoid it, and you could do it by just centering your tires over the 2-foot diameter pothole. Now that hole is about 8 to 10 feet in diameter, and it holds about 6 inches of water. In my truck, it just bounces through this thing. I see and I got a 16-year-old learning to drive, and I have now taught him how to go into the oncoming traffic side to get through the intersection, which is just dangerous. It's just
The Michigan life lesson.
Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, I know it's a Department of Roads thing, but it stemmed because they started pushing those trucks down 31 Mile, and it just tore it to shreds. So
Yeah, we can definitely.
it is what it is. We'll reach out to, I haven't got a chance to complain to roads yet, but they fall on deaf ears when residents do it, but maybe somebody at a higher level reaches through. So, appreciate it. The other thing, Seven Lakes. They put those pathways in. They connected the pathway coming south to Mound, right by the big pothole.
Everybody gets a turn.
Instead of going east towards the walkway that's across Mound Road that it should be directing, you know what I mean? That pathway that they put in coming east on Mound should have connected to
I mean,
Mound.
east on Mound or north or south on Mound?
East, I'm sorry,
East on 31.
31.
Does not
hits
go-
Mound, it does not go through to connect to the pathway across the street.
Gotcha.
So
That's
they just
why.
put it on the wrong side.
Yeah,
They shouldn't have put it to go.
There's nothing to cross
there's
to
nothing
the south
cross
side.
to on the south side.
I think I saw
There is
that
a
the other
cross
day.
to go to east, so just FYI.
thank you.
Beyond that, I'm good. Motion to adjourn could be in order?
Motion to adjourn?
What'd you say?
So moved? Second? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
So, motion second?
Motion second. He so moved my motion.
My time was 9.
You were.